Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 31st live stream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. I have a really interesting episode for you today. Probably not going to be the longest episode, just have Kage here with me today, as you guys can see. But today we are going to be going over two main topics. So one, I want to present one of the first builds I ever did nearly 10 years ago. It was the very first class I ever tried to build and write up. So we are going to go over that. I don't have anything to show you guys on screen because it is all written up back in the day. Like I had to, everything was always written in, always on paper for my DM. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Haven't looked at this in a very long time. And then after this, the main topic for today is going to be whether or not weather should matter in your realm and how you can use it as a DM. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to bring Kage in and then we are going to get everything set up. So let me get you unmuted. There we go. You should be good to go.
Well, hello, friends and neighbors. It's good to be back. Very excited for another 31 episodes, man.
31.
That's cool.
We are knocking them out. So, yeah, I'm really happy with it. I mean, it's been going almost, is it 6 months now? This will be month 6. So, yeah, we're knocking them out. And again, that's not even including all the playthroughs. I mean, I've done probably half as many playthroughs, but we don't need to number those because those are just more for fun.
Right.
But yeah, we don't have an item from our viewers today, which is all right. Gives us a chance to talk a little bit more about the things that we've made in the past. And so yeah, I've had this guy here for a long time. Give me 1 second. There we go. That's a little better. No, maybe that's a little bit too much. There we go. But I have had this write up, like I said, almost 10 years at this point. Actually, maybe not that long. Maybe it's only like 8 years old. Semantics, right? But I found it interesting when I came across it because it was really interesting to me looking back on how structured we were, or at least how structured my DM was in terms of how we wanted to present things in his realm.
Yeah.
And this was a good, I really wanted to compliment on the topic because now as a DM myself, looking back at, I mean, as you guys can see here, I mean, I'm not even done separating the pages out. And this was all, handwritten, but I mean, it was all done by me and it had to be done. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I have 10 pages of this thing. And again, what it was, because my DM was so very specific about basically protecting his realm. And so anything that we wanted to bring into it, it was, can you basically present me something to my standard? Which I fully much more appreciate now. Whereas before it was a great challenge, before it was a lot of fun, because again, this was D&D to me. Not just playing the game and being in character and being a part of the campaign. But when I wanted to create something and the fact that I had to present something so strict, there was something really intrinsic about gaming for me. And stuff like that, metagaming and
just like that.
Hey, what's going on, Cosmic? Nice to see you.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and so like we talked about the weapon that I built too, how I had to draw it out and actually talk about how it would, I can't just say I want the weapon to do this. I had to actually decide how it could be built. How can you piece it together? What materials would you use? How is the mechanism going to work? Who would you go to figure it out? Because you can decide how it's going to work, but you can't build it yourself, right? So all of these layers of complexity really made it interesting. But I look back on it too and I'm like, you know what though? This is a lot when someone really just wants to bring something awesome to the game, right? And I know that it's not because of this that I made adding things to my realm easier, but I think that this obviously influenced me because it's not that, like with you, and when you wanted to bring your custom class to my realm and you wanted to be an earthbender, it's I did not have you do this. Right. Like no one had you do this. It was more of a challenge for me. Can I make a class for one of my players? But that wasn't just all you had to do. I had to make sure that we discussed what did you want out of it and made sure that it worked. And you were basically field testing it. Instead of me just telling you how it's going to work, we're going through and field testing different ideas until it works. And I like that approach a lot more than just saying, oh, you want it, let me create it, because that's just a lot more work on me. No DM really wants to do all of that. But at the same time, I don't want to do this to my players either. I don't want my players to spend hours and hours and hours doing something that in the end has nothing to do with me. Because if you think about it, I could have kept on doing this and gotten more insights and more advice, like change this, tweak that. But at the end of the day, I did all of this work, and it would have been my ownership in his realm. But at the same time, it's like, how much of this really would have been like his creation? He's more accepting it and changing what doesn't fit, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what I want. I don't want to take your idea and say it's mine now. But I want you to have your idea. I want it to be your idea. I want you to have that ownership. But I also want to make sure that it doesn't just fit in my world, but I want to make sure it works.
Create something for your world.
Exactly. I want it. Want it to be a part of the world, not just be something that can work in it.
Yes.
And that's where I want to blend that difference. So going through this is going to be really interesting because, like I said, some of these pages are just like this one isn't even filled out, but it's just it's an empty grid where would have been your leveling up process. So we'll go through that as well. But yeah, gotcha. it's really interesting.
It's just not filled in.
Oh, did you get my text? I texted you yesterday or earlier today. Was it earlier today, Cosmic? I think I texted.
Might have been earlier today.
Check your text messages because we were talking about the plushie that Cosmic got that he posted in the Discord. You didn't see it?
Plushie?
He got a plushie on the way home from work, and it is absolutely amazing. Where did he post it? Right here. He got this brand new plushie. I can actually bring it up.
That is so cute.
That's what he was hoping for. There we go. Boom. There we go. We got this we got a cute little plushie, and then it has an Eevee buddy. I love the Eevee buddy. The Eevee buddy's amazing.
That's kind of fun. I am here for it.
By the way, you all can, if you guys have anything for us, viewers, join us on Discord. And there we go. You can check that out in the chat. But yeah, that was he was posting about that, and then he was talking about other characters. So I texted you earlier at 2:20.
2:20?
Yes, at 2:20 I texted you.
Okay, I have a text at 11:52 and 11:58. I do not have a 2:20.
11:52, jeez. Well, anyway, the question was, what are your thoughts? Just initial reaction, initial thoughts on the Melusan race.
The Melusan race?
Yes.
On the name itself?
Or just the race. Am I mispronouncing that? Because it might be that I'm mispronouncing it.
Is this a race that I should be familiar with?
I would very highly expect you'd be familiar with this.
Okay, the Melusan.
Melusan or Melusine, depending on how you pronounce it. That's what Cosmic's saying if you look in chat. You want to remind him where it's from? I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised. Like I said, I expected him to just immediately know about this because I have no idea. It's not my thing. But I know that you were all about it, so I don't know why.
Is this Star Trek?
No.
Is this?
There we go. It's in chat. Oh, it's the newest region. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know if you've been up to date with Genshin Impact.
Oh, okay. So
see, now we go. There we go.
I never know how to pronounce that. I never know how to say that.
There we go.
I
okay.
Just look at it and I just.
So you know what it. So I have. Okay.
Yes,
so I didn't.
I know what it is.
So you know what it is because I actually haven't looked it up yet, and I just because he literally was like, oh, it's free, and I'm like, oh, I have know nothing about the game, but you were like all about it. So
yes,
I want.
I actually have my dope little. I don't want to. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I bought this custom gaming. like handheld device. It's not. It's basically like a Switch, but it doesn't have things that come off. It's really cool. But I play it on here, and it's
See, okay, I was trying to tell Cosmic about that. Where so what is it exactly? Because
it's called the AYN Odin.
Unsponsorship here, but
Yes,
again,
sorry.
I was telling you Cosmic earlier that he was all into it, and he even got a portable. I was trying to say it's not your phone. You didn't get a mobile
Yes.
game of it. You got a portable gaming device specific. So
Yes,
yeah,
it's-
what, you talk about it because I'm going to pull up some pictures about what we're talking about here.
Basically, it's like a mobile gaming device, just like a Switch or the PSP used to be back in the day. I loved the PSP when it first came out. Like that's what got me really hyped on mobile gaming because like Game Boys were cool and all that, and the Game Boy Advance was great, but the PSP was just it for me. Like I don't know what it was. It was awesome. So when I found this and it has so many emulators, can do so much cool stuff, and it's powerful enough. Because there's no way. I'm not paying crazy money for like an iPhone or anything. Like I am not trying to run Genshin Impact on my phone. All right, my stuff is gonna get burnt out quick. But this thing, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, there was a Kickstarter like Indiegogo for these guys. I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna see if I can find where. I don't know if I saved it. If I come across the actual Kickstarter that I bought it from, I will link it to you guys out in the Discord. But
I told you he was all about it. I told you he's just all about this.
But yes, I got it specifically for Genshin. I needed to be able to like finish my dailies when I wasn't at home at my PlayStation. Like I was gone for a couple days, and I'm like I keep missing these.
So the reason he brought it, he wants you to know that the reason he brought it up, he brought up that race, which you both seem to struggle with pronouncing.
I don't even try.
Is because he found he's been working on a Genshin OC that is one of them. So he wants to like do.
He's creating a race for them. Or
Are
he's
you?
just
I'm
creating
assuming.
a character?
I'm assuming original character, as in he has a character based around that race in his D&D campaign. So that sounds really interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
So do you know much about him? Do you know much about this race? Have you gone to the new area?
So, yes, I've gone there. I've met them. Like, I don't know a lot about the lore behind them, a lot, like where they come from. But like, in the world of Genshin Impact, there are a lot of creatures that are of very strange, like there are like cat-like creatures. There are different. There are dog-like creatures. There's all different kinds of stuff. That
Oh, it's not for D&D. Oh, okay. It's not for D&D.
What's not for D&D?
The character. He's not making a character for D&D. It is original character, but it's not for D&D.
Oh.
I don't know what it will be for. He didn't mention. He just says that he... So maybe he's working... He says that he's working on a Genshin OC, so I don't know if you can be one of these in Genshin now. I don't know if you can like make a new character and become one.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's what he means. Definitely let me know, Cosmic.
Original character that is... Hold on, I'm going to copy this real quick.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if that's like a new character that you could play if you want to like restart or something.
That would be crazy.
I don't know if the game's worth replaying like that. If it's a game that you could restart and actually like have fun like going over again.
Yeah, like the big part of the game is like you're constantly making progress with your original character, and like you're constantly like building more and more and more. Starting over.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So it is for Genshin, but you can't like necessarily make a custom character. So it's just a concept. So he's making a concept over OC.
Got you. Okay, no, that's legit.
Hey, if they ever add it though, you'll already be ahead of the game. That's
Goodness.
By the way, I found I've been finding some mods for Baldur's Gate. This is reminding me. So I've been finding some mods, and I think I might be modding Baldur's Gate soon for both the Evil playthrough and my own. So I found one. I'm probably not going to use it just because it's like way too OP and kind of ridiculous. But there is a gun mod, and it basically just lets you have multiple different types of guns, and it's basically just manipulating different spells. So like I think like the machine gun is basically it's a level 2 version of magic missile, but you also get like 12 shots, so you just can hit a bunch of people around the map or just unload on one person.
Really?
But the two mods that I want to do there is one mod that unlocks the your party size from 4 to 16.
Oh gosh.
So you don't have to leave any NPC behind.
Good. Oh yeah.
You could literally just roll with your entire
Just
party.
everybody.
And if we do that on the evil playthrough with Lucifer, he can control 8, and I can control 8. We would basically be a vulnerable or a veritable army by ourselves.
And we just run through the that would be insane.
And then the other one I want to do, I don't know if we'll do this because we might do this because there is technically ways that we can change our characters. I just don't know if you can change your race, but I might change it up. But I found a mod that unlocks all of the races in the game to be playable.
Yes, and I found one that unlocks other classes. Like there's one that unlocks the Artificer class and extra subclasses. I keep seeing random one of these.
And what's fascinating for me is the way that the game has written it out. I'm wondering if these mods are just unlocking eventually future DLCs, because the way that I saw some of the mods working, it's weird that the game was ready to basically kind of like
adapt for those things.
It's very weird how these mods were not necessarily, I wouldn't want to say easy and quick to come about, but the game seems to be ready to have you play a different sized character at all times. Like even like the Minotaur I saw was like bigger than the screen, the character select screen. And so it's like the game was well prepared for a lot of this. So I'm just wondering if these will continue to be mods in the future, if they were meant for modders, because some games do that where they're like, hey, we're making a game for the modding community, or if these are just aspects that were easy to mod because they are going to eventually be DLC options. Who knows? It's just it's fascinating because it does open up so many more options. It's
really cool, and I'm really excited.
The biggest problem that I have though is like I want to do this right for stream, but here's the biggest thing that I struggle with: how many? Because all these mods are cool. But how many people want to see the Nautilus crashing again? How many people want to see me deal with the fucking druids again? How many people want to see me have my eye dug out by the jester again? It's like Act 1 has been so overplayed. Go on YouTube and just search Baldur's Gate 3. 90% of what you will find is Act 1 because everyone and their mother played it, but no one wants to play it for, 130 hours on stream. To get past Act 1. I know it's only like 30 hours, but still, like it's 30 hours just to get past Act 1, which is basically the tutorial. And then the game opens up. So if we can change races, if the game, because I know that the mirror was opened up in the last patch, so you can really change a lot of stuff. And Withers lets you completely respec yourself. Mm-hmm. So if we can do that, it would be great to unlock the party size, unlock all of the options, and then just roll through the game with a true customizable D&D party, because that's what we've always wanted. Yeah. We wanted, if I can imagine just being able to do that, take all of these characters and revamp them the way we want them, the options we will have. That's what I'm hoping for.
That's kind of dope.
So what's going on, Cosmic? Let's see. Characters usually have the element they control, 1 of 5 weapon types, 2 types of skills, a skill on the E key on the keyboard, and a burst or an ultimate. So I'm assuming this is more Genshin information.
Yes, this is basically he is creating in the game of Genshin. It's kind of a gacha game in the sense that you can keep getting new characters, right?
Gotcha.
So like there's all different kind of characters that come out. The new regions have new characters. And
it's a collectible game.
And the premise of the whole game does center around all these elements. So you have Electro, you have Hydro, you have
okay.
Pyro, all the traditional elements. You got Geo, which is like a ground one, But every single one of the characters has one of these elements, right? Mm-hmm. And as a result, like what he's saying is they all have a special ability, like your super, right? That's your Q, right? And then you also have like a moderate ability. Like if you're thinking about 4th edition, you have a daily power and a counter power. It's basically like that.
Okay.
And then you spam your normal attack. You spam your at wills, right?
Okay.
So if that's the mechanics of the game that you're playing with. And so what I think he's talking about is What he's creating is he's creating a character that you could hypothetically play in this universe.
Right.
So he's giving it an element. He's giving it
so this is the whole concept. He's trying to build it from the ground up. If it were in game, this is exactly how it would work.
Yes.
You understand it because you understand the game. So
Very
I'm just going to let you two talk those semantics because I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Oh, hey, you got it. You know exactly what we're... All right, yeah. Okay, so this is just something...
Floating or type. Yes, very much.
Okay, that's cool. That's dope.
Mine is an OC character. Uses pyro and has a catalyst. So lightweight like Yanfei or Klee. Those are the two current pyro catalysts. You know what I'm really upset about? And I don't know why I'm so upset about this. Throughout the entire game, there have been so many characters. There has yet to be a cryo book user. I have not seen even an unplayable character. I have just not seen a cryo book user, and I want to see one so bad.
So what's a book user?
A book user is like a catalyst. They're magic, right? So they don't do physical attacks, right? Most of the time when you're playing,
so it's just another word for mage, just to simplify it for me.
It's another word
okay.
for mage.
I didn't know if that meant that it's like you could be a wander, as in you can use wands. No, so it's basically that is just a type of mage.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And like your catalyst can be a book or an orb or whatever the actual item ends up being. But I'm actually curious because what you're likely doing, Cosmic. I'm looking at my computer like you're in there, but I should probably look here.
He's technically rare.
If what you're doing is creating what I would imagine to be a 5-star character, generally the 5-star characters have a weapon that they come with, a 5-star weapon that's like specifically geared towards them. It's very synergistic with their kit that they come with. So I'm curious if you're creating a weapon for them.
He has more for you.
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. My OC is more for support, in the form of charming the enemy and having them fight each other for 3.5 to 10 seconds. Up to 6 enemies. The more that's charmed, the higher their buff. So he says to you, nope, the character is 4-star, but their weapon is a 5-star.
Oh, very cool.
Still, I'm talking gibberish, but I can narrate easy. See, I'm good at narration, y'all. See, I'm the proper DM here. All I have to do is know how to narrate. I have no idea what's going on, but it's all right. They do. The characters know and the players know, and that's all that matters. That's a secret to DMs, by the way. If you've lost control, as long as the players know what's going on, let them just keep it going.
Let it go.
I do like the idea of this, of being able to make them fight each other. Like, man, can you imagine doing like to justify it in game, just to kind of tie some D&D to this, making a bard who masters in ventriloquism and vicious mockery. That can like
so easy to do in this game. Like
I'm just thinking, like, imagine though, like having
an instrument.
I just like the idea of a bard in D&D that somehow insinuates unease between the enemy. So instead of like debuffing, like, oh, you know, my team gets buffs of like inspiration, or I'm going to debuff them by having, like, imagine being able to do a thing where like either before combat or during combat, you're doing things that make them like an unhealthy combat, to where like they get disadvantaged because they don't trust the guy right next to them. So maybe, imagine that. Imagine being a bard to where like one of your debuffs is when in an encounter, as long as like an enemy is within 5 feet of each other, they have disadvantage because they don't trust each other. Like, imagine those kind of buffs.
That would be kind of crazy.
So you're literally you're debuffing the entire enemy team based on how they operate.
You are within 5 feet, and one of their untrusted allies is within 5 feet. They have to like roll a check to see if they attack their untrusted ally instead of you, or something like that. Or
they'll have disadvantage because they're constantly figuring out who's going to attack them. Oh man, imagine if you could do, like, again, what Cosmic's doing is a buff for how many. So imagine you're fighting a creature with pack tactics. Imagine if you have that to where it's like they have disadvantage on attacks if one or more creatures are near them. Their allies are near them, but if 4 or more allies are near them, or 3 or more, they have, they will end up attacking themselves, or they have negative, like, just the idea that the more of them there are, the worse this fear is.
I think that's cool. If it's like a compounding, like, negative.
Because they would work against specifically things like
Bane,
pack tactics.
Like, you get, like, a negative D4 to your roll. Imagine if that D4 just got bigger and bigger.
Right.
Go to, like, a D6
and then
whatever.
for every ally near them, within 5 feet of them, over 4, they have a 10% chance for each one. So it's adding 10% chance for every nearby ally over a number of 4 that they will attack an ally. So if you have a swarm, so imagine a swarm of like 12, just instantly it's a guarantee they're going to attack itself until it's below 100%. Then it's already at 9, so now it has a 90% chance of attacking. It's like, so can you imagine? So imagine just like a bard having like an instrument that plays like an eerie tune that just gets into the minds of the enemy and just makes, I'm liking this build. I love this build already, this concept of turning the enemy against itself.
They already have a mechanic in there. There was, I don't like a lot of the bow users, but one of my favorite bow users is, his name is Tignari. I think that's how you say his name. And
Cosmic will let you know.
Thank you. Please do. But I think that if he has this ability where he shoots his E, there's this like AoE area that any enemy that's in there, they are aggroed to the center of that area. So they stop attacking you. But if you just use that same sort of mechanic for like a character like this, either an AoE area or just like a certain group of enemies, like there's this one where you can literally take a picture of the screen and any of the characters that are inside that picture get affected.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's really cool. And so if you do something like that and anybody that's within this zone or whatever,
it's like a cone effect. I mean, you could basically, again, if you look at the idea of D&D, that's just a cone effect.
Yeah,
that's literally the trend. So again, if you guys are looking for ways to translate other games into your D&D world, something like that, the idea of a picture and everybody within that picture, that's just a fucking cone effect. So that's perfect. You can easily do something like that. So Cosmic did want to mention too. So characters have constellations, which is like mini skill tree. At constellation level 2, the charm buff gives defense and elemental mastery in addition to the attack. Kage, you had the question of, are they going to scale with defense?
So yeah, basically what that means is a lot of the characters, like when you level them up, you can choose to, you put on equipment. These are these artifacts that you like wear that give you certain buffs. And you can choose what buff that artifact gives you. Like, hey, this artifact will give me a bonus to my attack percentage or a bonus to my crit percentage. And certain elements of your kit a lot of the time will, hey, if your attack is so high, you will get to give yourself more healing. Or the more defense you have, the longer your shield will last.
Gotcha.
Right? So,
okay.
You're more motivated to like give yourself more defense because it'll help your kit work better. And so I'm curious if his is going to like scale with defense, and so that'll be what makes his kit work better.
Makes sense for me. Definitely thank you for the explanation, because now I'll understand his answer. So right after that, I don't think this is the answer, but right after that, he also said that the OC herself, so all of these race are females, scale on HP and elemental mastery. He does say that he sent you the info for his original character in DMs, so you can check that on Discord.
Oh, sick.
And it is on the Hoyo Lab.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the Hoyo Lab site, the Genshin's own title version of Facebook.
Yeah, it's
own little, not title. Its own little version of Facebook. Yeah. And then he also goes on to say Elemental Mastery is the stat that when triggering an elemental reaction, like fire or electric for overload, does more damage based on the triggering character's EM stat. So Elemental Mastery is a stat where when you're triggering an elemental reaction, it will do more damage based on that specific stat. So it's kind of like its own modifier.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, very much so. So it's really cool because whenever you go out and adventure in this world, you go out with a team of 4 characters, right? And you get to choose whatever 4 characters you want. And that's what's so cool about getting to collect so many different characters, because you now have so many different options to combine them together. But one of the best things that you can do in this game is elemental reactions. Like, different characters can do different things together. If I have a cryo character and a hydro character,
so you want to be able to stack
and literally freeze the enemy.
Right.
And they're frozen solid. If I have a fire character.
So there's a lot
and
more
electro
interactions.
character.
It's not just that you have a
Yes.
fire character if you get a ice monster. What you want is to understand how they will play off of each other.
Yes.
So like fire and the idea, I don't think it's it, but like fire and wind will make more of like an inferno or something because you're adding two complementary things.
Very much so.
Gotcha.
Very much so.
So it's really all about building a complementary system of
Yes,
magic
because
and
certain
elements.
things don't react with each other, right?
Right.
Like, it won't actually do.
I like
anything
the idea of
or
being able to play around with that.
It's so much
Fire
fun
and wind
because-
makes swirl. That makes sense. Kind of like a
Yes.
fire tornado.
Swirl
Makes perfect
is
sense.
one of my favorites. Animo is the air one, and that one's my favorite.
Interesting. Okay, that's pretty dope. I do like the idea.
Weird little detour.
Yeah,
deep dive.
when you get a chance to read up on the OC character, we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can do that today or just on your own time. But yeah, we'll definitely have to look into what he wrote up.
Oh, he's got the whole thing here.
Oh yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, like, there's some pieces that are still getting filled in, but he's got the whole thing set up. He's got the weapon. Okay.
I mean, why don't you, Cosmic? You should really consider like running a one shot or something in a Genshin like setting and use this. Like, makes it like if you're already doing this much work, dude, make a one shot. Like, because the cool thing about those one shots too is if they are good enough and people like it, I mean, you could basically turn it around, and sell it as a pamphlet. I mean, you don't have to sell it for a lot of money, but we're not talking about like making a deal with Wizards of the Coast.
$15
Like even $5 like digital pamphlet that you can sell. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what you're doing, but it's. I'm just saying, like, man, make that into something. That is a lot. It looks like a lot of work that you're putting into it. Definitely. I want to see that work. I don't know how Genshin Impact works, but man, can you imagine a setting where you're doing that? Can you imagine bringing 4 people together on a session 0, saying this is a one shot, maybe 3 or 4 sessions, but as you're building their characters, be like, okay, now you get to choose your elements, and then you get to talk to them about what they're doing with their characters, and basically session 0 is almost like them discussing, well, what if I do this, and then they build their like combos during set.
That would be sick.
So instead of you designing, like you designing all of the things that they could do, you sit them down and go, okay, who wants what element? You guys can have the same element, but I highly suggest you pick different ones. Now, once they all pick,
they do amplify each other.
and then what you do is you go, okay, like, and then you just like, hey, for example, everyone pick one, and then you say, okay, well, and then you just brainstorm. The whole session 0 is them planning out what are their individual powers, and what can they do together. And then you start the game like that, where they now have these set ideas of what their powers can do. Now, I'm not saying that you set them up like, in 4th edition where this is your at will. But what you do is you go, oh, I can do fire and wind and we can make a swirling tornado. Cool. Now, later you're like, now that was cool and all, but what if we do it... You know what I'm saying?
I know the people who would play this game.
I'm just saying, this is...
Hearing you talking, I'm like, because half the people that I used to DM for...
maybe that's what we should do.
The ones that got me into Genshin.
Maybe that's what we should do. Whether it's on a weekend stream, if I can get you over here for like an all-day thing, what if you sat down, like I'll do like the Genshin Impact, so you can bring in like the combos, but I can bring in more of like how we can like bring it together. What if we do that? What if we did that on an entire stream? We literally like did a one-shot Genshin build.
Bro, that would be so sick.
We could consider that. That's kind of dope. So Cosmic says that the higher the EM stat, the more damage. That makes sense. Fire, wind will make swirl. We did that's kind of cool. The fire, wind, ice, and electro are all make swirl when combined with wind. Okay, so you can just make this really epic thing.
You can swirl is my favorite because swirl reacts with almost everything. The only 2 elements that really don't react at all is Animo and Geo. They are almost so opposite each other, like rocks and wind.
Oh, gotcha.
They don't interact with each other
unless you have sand.
Unless you have.
And if you took 2 big rocks and you had a bunch of wind, and then you had the rocks grinding, making like because then you can make especially if you like oh dude, imagine this gust of wind, and then you have like things like slate. You take the rock guy, have the rock guy smash really brittle rock that makes really brittle sharp points, like or even like obsidian, because obsidian goes sharper than glass. You throw obsidian into a gust of wind, the obsidian shatters, and then now you just basically. I'm telling you, man, you give me any 2 things and we'll talk. Like, okay.
Animo doesn't react with Dendro either.
What's Dendro?
Dendro is like the plant element. Dendro is very interesting because It is so incredibly versatile.
Are there spores?
What?
Are there spores in this?
Technically, there are like the little
If
dendro...
if you can claim that in Dendro spores, solved. Because if you can manipulate the spores, that is now an aerosolized weapon. The whole point is, if you can get it in the air.
So
same thing. If you can make a plant,
if
if you can make a plant that can technically shoot thorns or can release its own thorns, wind can direct those thorns.
That is very fair.
But you're right though. That's more of one utilizing the other. It's way different than combining them though. Like being able to combine plant and wind magic isn't the same as carrying one with the other. That's not really them being combined. I mean, just to be fair to myself, right?
No, that's very fair. Very fair.
But he also says that he has a second OC character that has way more info, but he liked this one is more OP, but he made a water claymore.
Water claymore.
And then...
Is there a water claymore? There isn't a water claymore.
So Dendro is like a druid and as an element rather than a class. Oh, okay. That's actually, yeah.
That's
True.
lightweight to feel.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's kind of dope. But yeah, water claymore. So what does this game define as a claymore? I don't know why we're talking about Genshin so much.
Claymore is basically like a massive broadsword, like the Buster.
No, I know what that is. So it's like when they say a water claymore, they talk about like a class.
No,
like,
it's just like the claymore is your weapon and water's your element.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, it's a combo concept. Yes. Gotcha. I thought claymore was like a title.
Everyone's gonna have one. So like the OC he was talking about is a what are they called? A pyro catalyst.
Gotcha.
That's what they would be called.
Gotcha. Okay. Claymore is a big sword. Yeah. I know what the claymore weapon is. I was just curious if you were using it as when you said a water claymore, as in like if you were to use claymore instead of paladin. That's where I was thinking of is because like in anime, there's like in the Fate series, they'll use the term claymore as in like that's his name because that he's a larger fighter. Oh, I love Fate Zero is still my favorite storyline wise. I tried to piece it all together. Don't ever do that.
I was like, what order
don't
am I supposed to watch this in?
Ever try to piece it together. Don't ever do it.
I'm sorry.
It is.
I have come across TikToks that have tried.
But I love the Fate series. Fate Zero is still. I think Fate Zero is my favorite because I think it beautifully recaps the entire lineage of the story to the point to where the reason why you can watch them out of order is because it doesn't matter. The reality, the hardest part to accept about that series is that the order really doesn't matter because you're dealing with interdimensional entities. You're dealing with historic. You're dealing with these legendary entities that were taken from their time and are reused later. But some of them have seen more than the others. And what I loved about the reason why I gave up, and I tell everyone, do not bother with this. And there's one specific reason. You've already brought it up. It's Saber.
Yeah.
Saber is the reason why you do not want to go about it, and the reason why is because Saber is one of the most reoccurring characters in all of the episodes.
Or is she?
But what's really nice is if you listen to her. No, she is. But if you listen to her, there is no episode where she ever is, as far as I could find. There's no episode where she gives enough specifics to a different episode. She will give her experiences. She will talk about other tournaments, but they did a really good job to where, as far as I know, she talks the most about like the larger world and never references a specific episode or another series, which to me indicates that it's not meant to be in an order because from her perspective, she just gets summoned to fight for someone in the tournament, right? In these things, in the Holy Grail War. But from her perspective, there's more than there are episodes. She's hinted at this has happened to her more than we've seen animes.
Yes.
So her pulling knowledge is indicative of time doesn't mean much to her, and these aren't in any particular series. Yes. And I think that also hints that they are pulled out of order.
But
as in, even though the episodes may have order in the Earth world, like you could time it out, like, oh, this one took place in the 90s, this one took place in the 2000s, but for Saber, maybe she wasn't pulled in that order. That's another.
Yes.
I think that what they're alluding to is
there
that.
have been some people that have done some deep dives, way more than I could even bother.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But they have discovered that every instance of saber that you see is not necessarily the same saber. A lot of them are. But not all of them are.
And this is where the interdimensional concepts,
exactly.
because you have to make one of two assumptions when you watch the series. They're either all taking place on Earth, our Earth, at different times, or they're not all in the same universe. Meaning that, again, it's that concept of it's the same saber but different variations of her. You know what I mean? Like saber is brought out and then split and and fractured. It's like I said, don't try to piece it together. I love the series. Yeah. It's fantastic to watch them. I think it's best to just watch them as they are and understand that in the background they are all connected.
What's the one dude that keeps coming back to? Is it Gilgamesh?
Yes.
That dude with the.
Wait till you meet his high point version.
His what?
His high point version. He was really fun to make. I love that. Dude, Gilgamesh's power is so fucking dope, dude. I love that fucking power.
Yeah, it's
oh man. I think Fate Zero I also liked because of Caster. Caster was a really great in Fate Zero.
There were I shit you not. There are a lot that I
not just for the lore, but Fate Zero is my favorite because I loved what they did with all of the characters like Lance. I loved what they did with Lance in that one. Lancelot. I forget what he was originally called because it was Saber and he was.
Was he the one that was in blue or in red?
I think he was in red because remember he was corrupted. So yes, I think he was pulled to be something that he wasn't. But I loved his weapon, the one where one side goes through armor. Remember he had, or the other guy had that. There was another one in that series where he had the staff. He had basically a two-ended spear, and one side could bypass armor, just go right through your armor. And it was against Saber. So Saber was like, my difficulty is if you can bypass my armor, who fucking cares? So took off the armor to deal with him because it's like the armor's slowing me down.
Exactly.
But that's his trick. Ditch your armor. Now he turns to the other side, which is if it touches your skin, you basically get poisoned and you will die. So I loved that concept of lull them out of their armor because the danger isn't the spear. The danger is the poison. But I can't get the poison on you if you're in armor. So I have the other side to make you think your armor is a disadvantage.
That's fire.
God.
That's fire.
This whole thing that series has spurred so many ideas. PCM, what's going on? Thank you for joining us. We're actually almost up on our first topic. We just went on a big rant about Genshin Impact. Yeah, side quest about Genshin Impact and some other things. I mean, we've already filled 45 minutes. That's fine. But we should probably get down to this class. We have a lot to read. I'm probably not going to deep dive this like we do a lot of other like homebrews. We'll comment on what we need to. There's a lot of pages, and we don't need to go over absolutely everything. Sure. I might skim some stuff for y'all. Just roaming around Twitch while I do character stuff as I normally do. Well, we are so thankful that you stopped by, said hi. We appreciate it. Stick around a little bit longer if you want to hear us talk. I'm about to read over the very first class in D&D I ever tried to make. This is not a high point build. This is pre-high point. Actually, High Point was just in its early phases. High Point wasn't its own realm yet, but High Point was... Zenith was working on High Point at this time, but it wasn't what it is. Yeah, it wasn't manifested yet, but this was from another god character. Another character that... He actually wasn't a god. He was a character that was able to ascend to immortality. So he got a gift of immortality with the hopes of eventually becoming a god. And when he was working on getting the immortality, I started working on this, but the idea was for him. This was before he gained immortality. But the idea was this was his dream, to become this god. So he wanted to be the god of deception. He wanted to have a following of his own. So he wanted to become this god so he could literally make this class. So this is where my mindset was. This wasn't either. So not only is this not a high point build, this is not a Zenith build. This is a completely different character. So it's so funny. Not only is this 8 years old, but this is from a total, like, different mindset. Completely different character, different mindset. It's a different life. I was a different person. I gamed differently back then. I wasn't even a DM. Yes, it is. It is second edition, and we'll actually go over that because one of the first things we talk about is prime requisite, which for anybody out there, if you came in third edition or later, you have no fucking clue what I just said. Prime requisite is not something that existed. It never made it to third edition, and it has been gone ever since. So that's how old. That's why I laughed when before we started stream. That's why I was laughing about this, because I'm like, man, that is something I haven't heard of in a long time, because no one. I don't even use prime requisite in my second edition setting. I ditched prime requisite. So basically, prime requisite is just a very old mechanic that helped deal with XP. But you see remains of it in the whole. If you want to be a certain build, you have to have certain minimums
for your stats.
Yes, this was kind of one of those where if you wanted to be a certain class, you had to meet certain minimums, but it would also give you XP boosts. It was a very weird, archaic system that, again, even I wasn't huge on. But what I took from it was the idea that you had to meet certain prerequisites in order to do this. Prime requisite was more of an XP based thing. I now just look at it as, what are your requirements?
Gotcha.
But that's just another very, very old thing that is first thing I would take off of this. Because classes are... I think that unless the class has a very, very specific realm setting reason, there's no real necessity to block things off. Like, unlike in, like, you could make the argument, like, you know, a barbarian should have at least a strength of 12. I could understand that. You know, you don't want a 7 strength barbarian. That would be kind of weird. But I think in general, there are good times and places, especially with really nice builds, that you could make the minimum stat requirements. But I think for the most part, I think those have kind of gone away. I think most people don't bother with that anymore.
I mean, I think a lot of the times what happens is the stat requirements end up becoming your primary stat for your characters. So, like,
exactly.
If you're a caster, if you're a wizard.
And I think that's where it's evolved too. It's now of if you're going to be a caster, you should have your highest stat as intelligence instead of saying you need a minimum 11. Yeah. Now it's just saying make sure that's your highest. So that's a good point, actually. That's probably what it's evolved into. It went from being really rooted in XP to, well, what should you have in your minimum stats to just have this as your highest stat? Yeah. Which really solves a lot. Let's face it. That mind shift of just make that your highest stat really solves the balancing issue.
It helps you focus a lot more too, because I think a lot of people, they try to do all the things,
yep.
But it's like, hey, this is what's going to help make this character great.
And, you know, if you really want a weird gameplay, you could not make it your dump stat, but you could mess with it. Just because it should be your highest doesn't have to mean it's your highest.
Sure,
it's just one of those things where that's I think the difference between a player who wants to approach it more on the role play, whereas other players want to do more on the what is the actual like build, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of that judgment call of what kind of gaming group do you have, because you don't want to be in a gaming group that's all min-maxers, but you're role playing the I'm a fighter but I only have a 10 strength. I've just been really lucky up till this point. Like, that's cute and fun if you're doing like a boxing one shot or that's like your whole gig. But if you're dungeon delving, don't do that.
I mean, I think there is an element of, because I like reality, you know. I know that sounds weird, but it's like, I think there's an element of, you know, hey, if I'm really, really strong, I'm likely going to do things that are associated with me being strong. Or
right.
Likely, I am strong because I do things that are associated with me being...
Exactly,
like,
which is
I'm
why...
dexterous, like, all these things, they're very cyclical. So, like, I would imagine that somebody who is a ranger, rogue, who's doing all of these things, who's trained in these areas, I would imagine that their dexterity would be fairly high.
Exactly.
They're not all going to be 20s.
No, but you would believe that they either do things because they can or they can because they do.
Yes.
The idea is the stat should follow that mindset of it is because they can or they can because it is.
Yeah, you know, like if you have like shit charisma, why would you try and be a bard?
Exactly.
Everyone would run away from you.
And again, wouldn't be fine if it were more of a role-play-based game where you were a jester who's been kicked out and you're just because you're bad, right? Your dream is to become a jester, but you have terrible charisma and everyone hates you. That's a great role-play character. I love it.
Yes, very much so.
But the moment you try to do bard shit,
just be prepared for it to not work.
Right? Or it's like saying it's like min-maxing as a wizard, but then you always try to intimidate people. You're like, I'm the best wizard, I have all the best stats, and then every conversation you're like, I'm gonna punch this. I'm gonna make sure this guy knows I'm gonna punch him, and it's like, you're a feebled old man that has a robe on that literally looks like it weighs him down.
If he flicks you, you might die.
And that's my thing about again, how are you developing the character based on what's written, or are you developing the character based on how you want to play it? Those are two different mindsets that are always fun to balance yourself, but I think it always comes down to which one comes first, the paper or the play. It's a good question that I think a lot of players need to ask themselves and figure out what gaming group you're part of.
Very much so.
Because to the DM, it shouldn't matter. The DM's going to run the game. But if the DM's running a combat-heavy game and you're building a role-play-heavy character, we've talked about that before, know the crowd, right? Get with the right...
Why are we here?
Yeah, get with the right gaming group that is going to suit your game style. All right, so let's talk about the Deceptor class. So again, the idea about this was my character was supposed to, he wanted to have dreams of becoming a god, and then having this basically, the idea was to start off with these being his followers, and then become so prevalent that it was something that people would strive to become. So it was out of game, the mechanical concept was, I want to create a class. My DM was like, cool, gods can create classes, or you can submit it and I'll decide if I want to basically adopt this as a class in my realm. So I can give it to him. And I got to give him credit. I do like this concept. He would always allow you the easy way out. If you had a really cool idea and you wanted to be able to get to it in game, but you did not want to do the work, you were allowed to give it to him and he'd be like, you can give it to me and I'll make it available in the world, but it's mine. You don't get to make a claim in or out of game. You don't get to tell other players that that's yours, and in-game you take no credit for it. He always gave the easy way out. But you had the other choice. And I always like this because you see this in my realm. You can choose to take credit for it in both ways. You can give it to him outright, and it's just his idea, and he'll make it work the way he wants it. But if you wanted it to work exactly the way you wanted it, you could write it out. And, again, there's always different variables. You could make it to a certain point, but not make it in-game. Therefore, the player could take credit for it. They could name it, and it would be available in the world based on his design, the player's design. But where and how it developed in the world would be on the DM.
I get what you're saying.
But the player always got credit and could name it. But if you built it in-game as well, that character would have it named after them. And that character would then now have that legacy.
I think we talked about that with the last wish that I made, because I wished for something just because
I forgot what was your wish?
So my wish was strange, I guess, but I wished for there to be sign language in your realm. Because up until this point, I asked a couple of times, and you'd always said that it didn't exist, and it wasn't.
Yeah,
there.
the only thing that would exist would be like personalized,
yes,
things or
so
subtext,
there wouldn't be like a sign language common.
Correct.
That
is true.
That would exist universally.
Right.
And so
Is that a birthday wish? Did you use a birthday wish for that?
This was like a player wish. That's all I know.
So it must have been one of your birthday wishes that you got.
So
okay. I forgot about that.
So I was like, and you were asking me as we were talking about like what I actually mean by this wish. Is this something that I want like Dovd to create to like go around?
Yes.
And, like,
yes. Okay. Good. We did have a good example. Yes.
Instill this like language like out in the world. Do you want him to bring it to, or do you want it to just be out in the world and have it be out there and available for like people to use.
Right.
And
because the whole point was, did you want to own it or did you just want it to exist in my world?
Yes, I wanted to gift it to the world. I wanted it. I don't want credit or anything for it. I just wanted it.
Yeah. You didn't want to create what would be the language. You just want it to be. And that was your wish, yeah. And I forgot about that, but again, it doesn't come up. So it's just one of those things where, But I do believe that you did accept just it created. You just wanted it to be existing.
Yes.
So, yeah, then it would be on me. I haven't done it yet, but it will be on me to propagate that through the world. And when it comes up for someone who wants to have a character like that, or when an NPC comes up that will be perfect for that, that will be where it comes from.
That's honestly what I'm hoping for one of these days, because if I can run up against an NPC that could possibly like teach it to Dom, that would be fun.
There we go. All right. So yeah, so good little example there of that. So that's exactly what this was all about, is for me to own this, which is what I wanted. I wanted this not only to be mine and written the way that I wanted it, but I also wanted to be the owner both in-game and out of game. So best way to do that, become a god, get followers, have your most dedicated followers, your clerics, your paladins, get them on board with this, spread this, get a following to where people want to join and become this, like an elite force, and then eventually water that elite force down into a usable class. Because the idea is that you have it, you have the higher class one safeguarded within the religion, and then eventually you could take a watered down version and start opening up guilds, non-religious affiliated, but you have all of these people who will eventually spread this idea, and eventually just becomes a class. It becomes a... Because, how did a fighter become about? Like, people needed to defend themselves, and then someone else needed defending, and then you bought someone who knew how to defend themselves, and now you have a class, people who became good at fighting. You had people who became good at magic. So there are people who want to be good at music. There are people who want to be good at deception. So the idea of a Deceptor class wasn't just, I don't want to just be a thief who's good at disguising and good at, changing my voice. I wanted a brand new class that is entire from the bottom up, is literally all about not what you think. The whole point was, it is a dedication. You are dedicating this character build to not ever be what the NPC or other players think. Because Mike, so you got to understand the character this came from. Everyone knew him as Spaz, and I played him very much as you would expect that name to come out from. He was jittery. He spoke nonsense a lot of the times if he was speaking, and he acted very chaotically, without reason, without thinking of consequence. Like, I remember one instance, we were trying to follow someone, they were inside their tent, and we were trying to get them to come out and talk to them. And I'm just like walking around, just because I just do. I don't sit still. I made sure the character never sat still. So I would just be like, I'm just, okay, I'm just going to walk around the tent while she's talking to him. Because another person was talking to the NPC, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point I'm just behind, just looking around. And then she's just like, if you don't come out, we might have to smoke you out.
Who said that?
The other player to the NPC, like, we might have to smoke, like, just being, cheeky, like, don't make us rough you up. I lit the tent on fire. She said that, she's like, oh, she just said what? Oh, we'll smoke him out. I lit the tent on fire. I pulled out my Tinder and started trying to light it. She caught me. She was like, do I see that? And be like, she ended up stopping me and be like, we don't need to do that. I'm like, you said we could smoke him out. But that's the kind of character I played. I just played this. But what they also didn't know was he wasn't chaotic. He wasn't a chaotic alignment. So I put it into his backstory. I talked to my DM like on the side about this. His whole backstory was he's highly intelligent, wants to learn and wants to know, but he hates people. He cannot suffer fools. He hates people. He hates being bugged. And he hates like being like, he just doesn't like anything. So what he learned in school, because I made sure his backstory was he was well educated. Mm-hmm. He learned that people don't like weirdos. So he studied weird people. And he started to take on their personalities until the point where people left him the fuck alone. He literally got to the point to where no one wanted to be around him. So instead of demanding that he go back to class, they left him alone in the library to talk to himself. Because he would just sit there muttering. But he learned to ignore his own muttering so he could pay attention to his studies. So he became this very oddball that no one likes, specifically to... And then he also learned that people underestimated him a lot. so he got away with a lot more. People didn't expect a lot of him because they thought that he couldn't do a lot. So all the meanwhile, he's gathering information and becoming more intelligent.
Because no, there's no way he could have done that.
This was remember, I built the character.
Jerry over there,
so you got to realize I built this character before I had the class in mind. So as I'm playing this character is where I'm coming up with this class idea. Because the whole point was this character from the bottom up was not what he appeared to be. Mm-hmm. So I named him Spaz because he nicknamed himself Spaz out of people, basically making fun of him. So he just donned that name to immediately, when you meet him, hi, I'm Spaz. What? Hi? Hi. That's how he acted. That's how I played that character. Was just like you literally meet him and you're like, I'm talking to you, which is great because now he's paying attention to you because you're not paying attention to him. My whole looking around. Mm-hmm. Everyone ignores the guy that's looking around, but what does the guy looking around see? Where your archers are, where your trapdoors are. I was literally the info guy. And my DM was all about it. My DM would be fine with me picking out details that other people wouldn't. I would talk cryptically when I knew very well what was going on, but I wanted people to think I was dumb. And some of the NPCs would pick up on it. Some of the NPCs would know that I was catching on to more than I was letting on. But that was the whole point of this guy, right? So I wanted to create this. I wanted to create a reason for people to want that. I wanted to ensue an unknowing distrust. That was his whole concept. Was he wanted imagine a world where you couldn't rely on anything but yourself. So it was just this concept that constantly rolled. So eventually, again, long story short, me as the player wanted this based off this character that I made. So the character would have to become a god. And the whole point was a trickle-down effect. Start it in the religion, spread it enough to where people wanted this, make a doled-down, watered-down version that could just be anyone without the religious affiliation. Because it would be run by the religion. But eventually that watered-down version would remove the religious aspect. Yeah. So, person on the street, kid, you're just trying to make your way. Instead of recruiting you into, instead of doing the forced religious recruitment, just now make him a ruffian. Get him into this, because once you're the god of an influence, your biggest feed is your followers, right? Mm-hmm. That's where your biggest feed of power is your followers. But once you're the god of a sphere of influence, once you're a god of something, that thing is also your power source. The bigger the power source is, the closer they are to you, right? So again, as he's learning about gods, the idea is that, well, if I created a followership based off of this, and then that followership became more powerful, really dialed it down into what he wanted. That followership is so powerful, it's directly feeding me the type of god I want to be. Mm-hmm. But then they make other people do this without the religious, because not everyone wants the religion. Mm-hmm. But if you find people who don't care about the religion but want to do my actions, they are still propagating my sphere of influence. And the more that my teachings, again, once you go from I have religious teachings to now I have my sphere of influence teachings, these teachings can spread further.
Right.
So you can have a foothold so you could go into the heart of another god's territory, in the heart, right outside of their main temple, but you could be having a slowly growing sphere of influence there, not a religious influence, but your influence area. And then all you got to do is plop one of your religious people there.
Theoretically speaking, could like for instance, a paladin could multi-class as a fighter, right? Mm-hmm. Could a paladin multi-class as
well, of course, a paladin of Spaz would be able to,
but not of.
Once it became a full class, absolutely. Anyone. But guess what happens? I now have a direct tap on that god. Let me back up here. I don't want to overspeak.
Okay.
This is not a high point build.
Yes.
This is not a high point concept. It's not a zenith concept. I am going to retract that last statement. I will not speak on my prior DM's realm. It is not fair. The goal was to do that. The idea was, it is my sphere of influence. It is supposed to propagate. The further out it goes, and the best way to do that is to remove the religious aspect, because more people will take on to it. Mm-hmm. And I could, hopefully, the idea would be to infect other religions. Because if you had other clerics paladins, holy knights delving into this, unbeknownst that it directs to me.
For whatever reason they wanted to do it, but
The idea would be that. Would that have worked? I cannot speak on my prior DM's world.
For sure.
That was the goal.
Okay.
But yes, that was what I was hoping for, is if I could have such a control, I could basically have an eye everywhere. And again, it's just a class. It's not a religion. Of course that paladin could be a deceptor. Of course that cleric could be a deceptor. It's just a class. It's not a problem, except just because it's under my sphere of influence only just means I now have, I have like those eyes through a painting. I just have one eye poking through now. Now I can just spy, because guess what? Why would you care if one of your followers has a class? It doesn't matter.
He just knows how to do some cool stuff.
The whole point is not what you think, right? So again, big long story about how this class happened and a little bit of insight about how I used to be. Okay, so class availability. Now, this was another thing where an old mindset where there was a lot of limitations back in the day in older editions on some like classes and things would actually be race specific and a lot of other aspects. So this is kind of one of those things. So obviously at first the class availability was only available to the followers. His god name was going to be DR. It's D apostrophe R, so DR. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that was always so important, but he was always very specific on, it's not DR, it's DR.
Yeah.
Almost like DIR or DYR, but there is no other syllable.
Yeah.
But it was DR Spaz Dragon, what was going to be his full god name.
Okay.
Again, just all about DR Spaz. What? Like always making people guess. That was the whole point of his concept, right? So they can be unlocked by non-followers if discovered. So basically it was, how to unlock it. So if you didn't know about it and you weren't a follower, you'd have to meet a follower, understand what the class was, then it would be unlocked to you kind of concept. So multiple layers of in-game investment to find it. Prime requisites, again, an old concept, doesn't work anymore, but the idea was it was going to be a wisdom of 13, an intelligence 12, and a charisma of 11. Mm-hmm. So you can't have a bad charisma because you got to be able to have people believe you, or at least be believable.
Yes.
So my character, again, wasn't putting on a show. That was the biggest difference. I never put on a performance, so I never had to use charisma, and my DM was cool with this. The idea was that I built it in to my character's background. So my acting was how my character just acted. I didn't have to turn on the dumb and do a performance check or use my charisma to convince people I was dumb. I built it in that is just how my character acted. But there was once a time where we had like a serious meeting where like one of the other players and an NPC pulled me aside and they were like, it was like a big serious moment and I dropped character. In game, my character was like, fine, let's talk. And just instantly, all of the tics, all of the wandering, all of the, like, I literally just went into like what he really is, which is his highly intelligent, highly well-spoken self. And just in that whole time, just had a conversation with them about like what, like just stuff. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as we were out of that room, turned it back on. Just went back to normal spaz. But the idea was like that was the first time they got an insight into who he really is. But it's not a performance check because based on the backstory, he's been doing this for years.
This plays in perfectly because this is hypothetically a charisma stat. Like you would imagine somebody like Rock Lee. Does he have to make a check to walk around with those weights on?
Right, exactly.
No, because that's his standard.
Exactly, like what we've talked about, like with Dov's ring. I don't make you make checks. You found an exploit in that ring and you just started twirling it. I don't make you make rolls every time we play. You don't have to tell me every time you play. But the point is, it's in the back of both of our minds. That thing's been gathering fucking energy for like months now. It's going to be interesting the day you decide to use it. But the point being, yes. And this is something that my DM was really good at, which is what I brought to my realm, which is the idea that you have feats, you have things on your character sheet, but if someone wants to add something, and again, I hate the term flavor, but in this case, I will use it. I don't like flavor text. You guys know me in flavor text. I fucking hate that term. But this, I will use the word flavor. Simply because when you want someone to add something special to their character that is either beyond the build or is so like I need this for my character, but either I can't get it till this level because I don't have the right feat or it doesn't quite fit. Like there are things where I believe that we as people, we can sit down and learn things. We can go to school. We can dedicate time. But there are other things that we just pick up along the way, or we don't really dedicate time to, but it happens often enough that we catch on. And that's what I like about being able to let players do that. And that's what my DM was really all about. Like, one concept that I think that he had for one of his other players, like a long time ago, was that they were like, you had to be of some sort of like reason to have like telekinesis, right? Mm-hmm. But one player was just wanted it, and for their character, but their character had no build and no chance to actually get it. But their character came up with something. They're like, what if I just tried? And he was like, what do you mean? Just like, what if I just tried? And he's like, you can try all you want. You can't. She was like, okay, I'm just going to try. And then after a while, I think she carried an item around and just like with you with the ring, just would randomly say, can I lift it? And just try. Eventually, he started making her make rolls. I think just for the hell of it. I think he told me just to shut her up. And eventually, she just made enough good rolls where he's like, it moves. She's like, what? And he's like, it wiggled. I think eventually she's able to have like a 1 pound or like half, like super basic. But the point is he awarded her not because she said her character is always going to do this, but because she did it. Right. And that's one thing that I took that and I'm like, you know what? I want that to be able to be for my players. I want my players to be able to say, you know what? Yes, I want this cool, complicated build. I might not be able to get everything perfect, but being able to allow them to strive for something, being able to let them add that flavor to their character. This is why I'm okay with it, because using the word flavor is you're spicing up that character build beyond what you would normally allow or beyond what the paper would allow. And it doesn't have to be adding feats, but being able to, like, if someone wants to say, hey, can I add a maneuver where in battle, if I hit a like what we've, what video games are doing really well with Baldur's Gate, having actionable or having actions based on your class or your race, right? Having I love this idea. And this is kind of something that I've done, but not on a mass scale. But let's say someone says, hey, I want to practice a move where I end up behind the enemy after my attack. Yes. That's not something in the game. That's not a feat that you don't have to wait for a feat. But if you're like, oh, okay, so how would you do that? And I would talk with them, make them do a couple rolls, and then make them try it in a battle for a couple times. And then after maybe so many successes, it's like, hey, you can just do that now.
Dom did the exact same thing. So he first tried it with whatever you want, floor sensors. Picking up the sand and the dust.
Oh yeah, just learning what you can do with it.
What can I feel with this? When I look, can I feel footprints on the other side? Can I do things like that? Also, when he started trying to do a lot of the parkour moves and incorporating some...
Oh yeah, and being able to pick up sand and use that to basically make more grip, right? Yeah. And so these are the things where it's like, these aren't pre-planned stuff. And you could just basically say, well, yeah, that's just all homebrew, right? You could just say, oh, well, you guys are just making homebrew stuff. But there's a difference between homebrewing out a whole feat or a whole thing, whereas you're basically letting someone reproduce a very creative way of doing something and you're giving them a bonus for that creativity, right? Whereas you could just say, you could flavor text it and say, oh, well, you can make it look like however you want. But like with the parkour thing, we actually gave you a bonus to your parkour. You actually had a benefit because you incorporated your power, and you didn't have to roll for it because it was now naturally incorporated because you did it enough times. You incorporated that into your character. And those are the little tweaks that I think really make it interesting, right? Like, again, a fighter being able to gain an advantage where maybe something becomes a bonus action because it's he that one specific move is something that he's recreated. Like with you've seen this in almost every game I play. I always make a rogue character and I always work with the DM to make which everybody now just knows as the Assassin's Creed blade. But for me, way back before Assassin's Creed was made, I always made sure that my rogues had some sort of mechanism where not just a blade would pop out, but specifically their dagger, and then they could grab it off of the mechanism. The idea would be it's just basically a loaded pop out, grab, now I have my weapons, and I could, sink it back in. But the idea was I always want to be able to throw these. Yes. So the idea was kind of the Assassin's Creed blade, but essentially it was just a delivery system for, a dagger. I always wanted that, so I always challenged DMs. Can I make this? Can I buy money? Can I find someone who will make this item? Because the idea is if I'm ever weaponless, it's a free action to just, now I have my weapons out. Mm-hmm. It was a way to get over the action of pulling a weapon, or if I throw my daggers, I can reload. Yeah. That the idea was just giving me that extra ability in combat, right? It's not a feat. it's not a normal item you can buy, but if the DM is cool with it, it's that one little thing that gives your character more spice, more flavor, that I think is absolutely ideal for DMing, right? And just D&D in general. You know, I always like to, with my, also with rogues, like always what I like to do is, because I love carrying all my daggers, I always see if I can make a body harness where I can hold 2 daggers on my chest, 2 daggers on my front belt, 2 daggers on my back belt, 1 in the back of my thing, 2 on my legs, 2 in my boot. You know, the idea would be, can I make this body harness to where I could just wear, you know, like a big cloak or something where no one will ever know. So I could take out daggers and be like, here, I'm unarmed. And then just be like, "Foop, nope, I'm here." You know, make a cloak with slices to where it looks like one solid cloak, but then I can go underneath a sleeve and grab a dagger, right? Those are the things that I like to create that make my character more versatile, but they're all well within the realms of the game, right? I'm not asking to be able to make a bunch of attacks per round. I'm just trying to overlook that I like daggers, but if I throw them, I'm now weaponless. How do I make it to where I can justify carrying 20 daggers? Because you don't want it to be too video gamey, whereas I keep pulling daggers out of nowhere.
Bag of daggers.
But if I make a harness that literally is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I could have 18. Now, granted, it's a lot of weight still, but again, you work with the DM to decide with a side. Like you could work with these things to really make it a lot better, right? Make a bard have his lute or his banjo or whatever weapon or whatever instrument he has, make it out of metal so he could use it as a bludgeoning weapon. Flavor, spiciness, not flavor text. That's not just, oh, it's made of metal. No, you're actively saying now it can be used as a weapon, now it has actual damage, and it won't break. That's not flavor text, that's legitimately just spicing it up. Yep. And that's what I mean in those cases of, those are things that I think DMs should be very open with, because they're not fully making new mechanics, but you're allowing the players to be what they would be.
Yeah.
You know, you're allowing that in the real world, those are things that could happen, and you shouldn't wait for a level up to let those things happen.
Yeah, and it should be locked to, hey, you are only allowed to do what the class says you can do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hey, Brewbull, sorry, I did see that you came in. I was right in the middle of that rant, so I'm sorry I didn't say hi to you when you first came in. But hey, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And you do think weather should matter, and you have a good explanation for it. Actually, yes, that will be our secondary topic. We are hopefully going to get to that still. That's kind of our backup topic, because I knew that this was going to take a while, and we're already going off on a lot of tangents here today. But save that for us, and actually, if anything, go ahead and post your explanation in the chat, and I will at least try to end on that before we go, because it is a topic I want to come back to, because both in terms of story, lore, realm building, and non-encounter based stuff, weather's all really interesting, but then when you really get into combat, are you doing it, my idea was talking about more of, are you doing it based on, I'm designing this combat to have this issue? Do you add it in based on the otherworldly effects, like time frame of the year in your world? Do you actually pay attention to your calendars? It's a whole concept, but me talking about this class is taking up a lot more time than I expected. But yeah, I still want to know what your explanation is. I'm really interested
about weather all too often in my games.
I even have a full working calendar, and Vixie has seen it. I've run through the calendar. It's just, weather is important, and we will get back to the class in a second, but weather is important. I think it is underutilized a lot, and I think that when it is utilized, I think it's a little bit too scripted, in terms of most people just do it based on the setting, like, oh, it's just stormy, everything is wet now. But I think that weather is underutilized in the sense that if you are having an expansive map and you are having people travel from place to place, really thinking about not only the time of year and how long it takes them to travel, but the seasons, I think adds not only a great worldliness to it, right? Like having to dress up because it's getting colder, having to go into the snow, but then having the world react to that, more fires, you're in a cold place, there's going to be more fires.
Leaves,
exactly.
Like
or
trees
snow.
That are all leafless, and now there's a lot less visual cover over top, so you might be able to be seen aerially.
Yeah, things like that.
You walked through here, it had a lot of cover, you didn't have to worry about that.
And that's what I'm thinking is, like, there's a lot of things, or being able to ambush someone with a tree full of snow, being able to get all that snow piled on top of them, versus in the wintertime or in the summertime, There's not going to be anything to knock down on them, you know? Or maybe there's a hornet's nest that you can knock down in the springtime, but not in the summertime and not in the winter. Like, weather has so many good points. I think it's underutilized, but I do think that when it is utilized, it's not utilized as creatively and as dynamically. And that's the other thing, too. Fair. Starting a battle, like having things like set up to where storm's brewing and coming in and letting them know, like, hey, you have 10 turns before the storm gets here. And give them a chance to see the oncoming ambush. And if they can get around it but having that counter, having them know the storm's already on their way, but not having it timed to where, the storm's going to get here when this encounter happens. Again, too scripted, too cliche. But knowing there's this ticking clock and having them have choices that will... Because a lot of the times I've also noticed when you're traveling and, how long is it going to take us? 9 times out of 10, that's useless. I can't say that I've really ever been in a game where the travel time ever mattered. And I feel like it's a mechanic that is used by some people who want the realism, but isn't really used effectively in terms of like things like, hey, in 3 days there's going to be a storm here. And you have multiple options to make this trip, which will take you anywhere from 2 to 5. Those choices that you make will directly affect how long it takes you, therefore directly affects if that storm is going to come in. I don't see that nearly as much as it's already timed with your actions or it's just there.
And it's very interesting because, a lot of the stuff and I know, especially in a world like yours, like everything is always moving. Everything is always happening. And so, like, timing matters to it. Like, you spend, a month in this town just chilling, doing whatever, time's moving on.
And I spend so much time thinking about like just the world in general, but I know what season it is, and I keep in mind what the world is doing with that, right? If it's low production season, if it's high production season, how easy is travel. Those are the things I think of, but I do neglect the effect that weather has. Now, I think about the seasons, I think about rain, I think about that, but I don't think about a moving storm and how the player will play through that. I neglect it myself. And like I said, it's just one of those things where I think it's underutilized. And that's why I want to talk about it eventually.
For sure.
But back to the Deceptor class. So anyway, we had some prime requisites. Again, it was basically wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. So you had to be smart in both ways. You had to be street smart, book smart, because you had to understand. It was more street smart. I think really this would be basically a charisma wisdom, I think. Street smart and charismatic. If we were talking about today's. I don't think intelligence matters at this point. That's fair. And then, so here's an example of how the prime requisite used to work, right? So if you had, the wisdom was 13, intelligence was 12, charisma was 11, which means these are the bare minimum you had to have. But the reason why I talk about prime requisite being a XP boost is the way that second edition and previous editions would do it, where if you had, say, a wisdom between 16 and 18, so the minimum you needed was 13. But if you had it between 16 and 18, and this is what I wrote, but this is how it also used to work, you can get a plus 10%, you get an extra 10% to XP. So for every
time you gain XP, you get an additional 10% to whatever you receive.
If you had a higher wisdom. That's
so
how.
If I got 100, I would get 110.
Yeah. If your wisdom was between 19 and 20, you'd get 15% extra. And if your intelligence, in addition to the wisdom, if your intelligence was 18 to 20, you'd get a plus 5. So if you had a 19 intelligence and a 19 wisdom, you would effectively get 20% extra XP every time.
That's kind of clean.
So back in the day, shit like this mattered. So your prime requisites were not only your minimum stat requirements, but they also slotted how those benefits would increase.
That's pretty cool.
There was a lot of cool stuff. Like there was a lot of like race and other things where my DM did it, I think, really well. I don't do it like this, but he did it really well. Where if you had a player specific one, like let's say you got like certain classes, I think like rogue classes would get like an extra 5% for every gold. Extra, basically. So for every 100 gold, you got 5 XP kind of concept. But he would never tell me that. So he'd be like, here's the group XP and here's your personal XP. That's all he would say. It was my job to go, well, group XP is divided equally, so I take my share, and then I add that to my personal XP. And then it was my job to remember that I get the... so then he said, oh, and you also, each of you get 10,000 gold. It would be my job to times that by my multiplier and add that XP. And if I didn't, he didn't give a shit. If I didn't,
told you that about that.
So on my build, yeah, when I made my character, he's like, you will get this extra XP for every gold you make. I will never tell you that again.
Now,
and that's how he did it. He was like, I will never mention that again. That is on you. But he also had a rule. If you don't remember, or if you do remember, don't say anything. Meaning, you're not allowed to tip other... So if I go, oh, that's right, gold? Oh, I get more XP. That tips someone else off. Oh, that's right, I also get XP for something else.
Yeah.
So the whole point was, I'm never going to say it, but also don't tip anybody else off. Everyone is... Because his whole deal was, your character is your character. If you have something special, it's not on me to remember it, it's on you.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the metagaming where if someone forgets, they forget. I don't do that. It's a little bit harsh, but he was really big on that.
No, I got you.
So that's where Prime Requisites, if y'all never mentioned them, like I said, it's a 2nd edition and prior mechanic. If y'all don't know what that is, it's because you're playing earlier edition or newer editions, and it's a dead mechanic. So don't worry about it. And a hit die of 6. So the Deceptor class came with a hit die of 6.
Okay.
Was not a
wizard equivalent.
Yeah. Well, the wizard was 1d4.
Oh, back then, wizard. Oh.
Why do you think they all joke of their glass cannons? Because their hit die was a d4, bro. No, 1d6 was like because like a fighter was like a d8 or d10. So this would be more like your thief. Like it would be a rogue.
Okay.
Equal to rogue. Actually, yeah. No. I based it off of the rogue class. I use a lot of the rogue stuff. So 1d6 would be equal to rogue. So alignment. So back in the day, alignment had alignment requirements. So this one was neutral or chaotic. So you had to be neutral or chaotic in some fashion.
Okay.
Good, evil, or full neutral, doesn't matter. But
was
so chaotic good, chaotic neutral, chaotic evil, or
Spaz neutral?
So Spaz. What was Spaz? Spaz was originally he played chaotic evil. Like he portrayed himself as chaotic evil. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, I considered him lawful evil because the idea behind lawful evil is you agree there should be rules so they can benefit you. Like, basically, you agree, yes, like a speeder on the highway. Mm-hmm. You are lawful evil if you want there to be rules so you can speed and go faster than the rest of everybody else. Exactly. Rules only matter when they benefit me, meaning the speed limit benefits me because I can go faster and everybody else stays behind me. Whereas if there was no speed limit...
then everybody would be going as fast as I
am. That would be... Neutral evil would be, well, get rid of all the laws so I can go faster. Neutral evil. I don't give a shit. Just get rid of the fucking law.
Okay, they can go faster.
Yeah.
I just want to go faster.
Chaotic evil, get rid of all laws so I can just do whatever I want all the time. And I don't care about everybody else. But lawful evil is more of a, I want to do this, but I don't want you to be able to do this, so you follow the rules. Yes.
It must be harder for you to do this. I want you to be scared to do this.
Right. Business owners. Business owners using the exploits, but not letting anyone else know there are exploits. Those are the things. So this would be under, you have to have some sort of neutrality or some sort of chaoticness. Again, I look back on that, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I would say that if I had an alignment restriction, it would be good. You can't be of any good alignment to be this. That would be my only restriction at this point. You could be neutral, you could be evil, but maybe you can't be a good character and have this. Maybe that's my only point. Right? Interesting. So first, I have a thing here called First Edition. I don't know why I don't know if this was meant to partake in...
like aspects of First Edition? Like...
Oh, no. Okay, so it's neutral chaotic. So chaotic good, chaotic neutral, chaotic evil, lawful neutral, pure neutral, lawful evil, neutral. So I was just listing them all out. So it's just, it's all the different variations. So this was also really interesting. So I try to write this based on the book. So I added things in here that I wouldn't even think of to add now, but again, I'm following how the book used to write these. Yeah. So I also had to write more information. So it's like, per this class's specialty, good alignment characters are unable, unwilling, or forbidden to practice the art. I still agree with that. Like I said, I would, and maybe that's why I said the alignments have to be neutral or chaotic, they can't be good. Because it's good, neutral, chaotic, or lawful. So maybe I cut out again, 8 years ago, this was a completely different content. I don't build things like this anymore. So I agree with this, though. I like how I wrote this. So per the class's specialty, good alignment characters are unable, unwilling, or forbidden to practice this. To to practice the art of the Deceptor. I used to call it the art of the Deceptor or art of deception. However, a hero of the chaotic good alignment can bend the rules and are more apt to understand their potential uses for good and thus can obtain the abilities of this class. So the chaotic good meaning anything for the right cause.
Yeah.
But see, that's more, I should have said neutral good, because neutral good it's lawful good is the word of the law is the law. Neutral good is my concept of good is better than your concept, and I will do whatever it takes for my good to rule. And chaotic good is in the moment good without consequence, right? So those are those concepts of the way I wrote that there should have been neutral good. Being able to bend the idea that you don't need to, your actions don't need to be good as long as the end result is the good part.
Right.
And then I did this. So I actually wrote, because in the book, they do a lot of lore stuff, right? And in the book, when you're reading on classes, they'll do like little snippets of things.
Yeah, I always see that.
Like little quotes,
just
quotes of things that don't exist, but they're quotes. So I made my own quote. And
Okay.
I did a quote, in quotes with the italicized, did it all like the book does, and I even quoted it from D.R. Spaz Dragon, The Tomb of Deception. So I actually started writing The Tome of Deception and like Spaz. So here's a quote. So here's a quote, a snippet from The Tome of Deception, because this is how we had to write things, right? We had to make it look as good as possible. Ooh, I like this. So this is my own writing. This is a quote that I came up with, didn't find online. This is my own. To lower oneself to the level of the Forsaken is the epitome of failure. However, to use the powers of thine enemy against them is the epitome of cunning. So the idea behind this, if I remember correctly, was to lower yourself to the level of your enemy is failure. If you have to lower yourself to your enemy's level, you have failed. But to recognize their level and use it against them is cunning.
I am here for that. I am very much here for that. I like that a lot.
So, big guy, he wants to fight you. Don't lower yourself and hit him, but use his strength against him, right? You don't have to be the aggressor in the situation to use his aggression against him. Get him to do something illegal and then have someone else take care of him, right? Like, the idea behind this quote is, again, I like the way I wrote it. To lower yourself to the level of the Forsaken is the epitome of failure. So anybody below you is the Forsaken, right? So the concept of don't lower your standards to win, use their standards against them.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So, description. So this is where we get into the actual stuff. So, description. A Deceptor is a character who dwells in the world of secrets, disinformation, distraction, and deception. Not keen on fighting, he would rather subjugate his enemies before lifting a finger. Similar to the thief, he can use his abilities for profit, entertainment, or achievement. An excellent spy and typically an excellent spy and typically underestimated foe. He must dedicate himself to this path in order to fully unlock its abilities. And another reason why I did that is because the way that this is built is if you multi-class, you get kind of locked out of some of the higher level stuff. So this is one of those, if you start it from the very, very beginning as level 1 and go through it all perfectly, you get all of the benefits. But kind of like, again, balancing purposes. So yeah, that's so far what we're dealing with is just all levels of deception. I don't even know if we're going to be able to read through all of this today, but we're going to find out if we can get through this in an hour. So the Deceptor. So the primary is the wisdom, others, intelligence, and then charisma. Experience bonuses, we already talked about that. Hit die, we've already talked about that. It's D6 per level up to level 9. Starting at level 10, you get plus 3 hit points per level, plus your constitution adjustment every 3 levels. So blah, blah, blah. Maximum level, there is no limit necessary for class abilities. So unlike back in the day where there's a limit of 20, my DM's realm, there was no limit. My realm, there is no limit. So this one had no limit. Right. Armor capabilities, any plus a shield, excluding suit armor and plate mail. So any level, light, heavy, but you can't use suit or plate mail.
Gosh.
Like full suits of armor, like head to toe. Weapons, any dagger, staff, mace, short bow require normal proficiencies. All others require double proficiency to wield.
Okay.
So So like a staff, you would just have, so basically if you wanted to do higher, so like things like dagger, staff, mace, short bow, you just needed a proficiency point to wield it. If you wanted to do things like great axe or things like that, again, because you're not a fighter, you need double the proficiency points in order to wield it properly. So basically everything costs twice as much.
Okay.
And that's
only if you start out as this class.
That's basically, the idea is that you're not a fighter, so if you want to be a fighter, it's going to cost you double.
Okay.
So Deceptor. Okay, so here's again an age-old thing that I would not apply anymore, but this was because of how it used to happen. But there was race requirements. So back in the day, I said the Deceptor is a human, elf, or minotaur character with impeccable abilities in deception, disinformation, and subjugation, using their higher wisdom to outthink their enemies and control situations. Away from the attentions of others. So again, I just removed the race requirement. There's no need for that. Deceptors follow the path of manipulation. They believe it is better to use their enemies' overestimation to overpower them and their underestimation to surprise them. They thrive on bending the truth and utilizing loopholes. So always thinking. I'll just do so. They follow the path of manipulation. They believe it's better to use their enemies' overestimation to overpower them and their underestimation to surprise them. They thrive on bending the truth and utilizing loopholes. Much like thieves, deceptors use misdirection, lies, twisted truths, and cryptic messages to achieve their goals. Sound like Spaz yet?
I like it.
They believe in obtaining what they want through the actions of others without their knowledge. A big thing that Spaz used to do is the whole point was he was just a passenger along for the ride, meanwhile getting what he wanted out of everything. They understand that the will and mind of another is as powerful a weapon as the strongest steel. They have seen the power of religion over its followers and seek to harness that power for their own purposes. Seeing where I got the whole start as a religion and get away from it, because he understood the power of religion, but it doesn't have to be religion that holds the power.
Right.
They strive to gain power over the weak, influence over the strong, and are always working to increase their abilities. So it's basically never rest on your laurels, and the whole point is overpower the weak and influence the strong, because you aren't strong. So don't overpower the strong. Overpower the weak and influence the strong. Make the strong your tools. So class details. Prime requisite. Deceptors have 3 prime requisites. Blah, blah, blah. This is just, again, just repeating because that's how the book used to do it. So it's just going over the XP boosts. Hit die. A Deceptor starts with 1d6. Blah, blah, blah. Again, just how the book used to write it. Armor. Deceptor can wear any type of armor except for plate mail and suit armor, and they can use a shield. Weapons, they can use any kind of weapon. Any weapon other than a dagger, staff, mace, or short bow will require double proficiency, i.e. double the training time, double the cost, double the proficiency points in order to wield them. And again, the idea is you're not a fighter, so it's harder for you to do that. Special abilities. Deceptors have numerous special abilities. They receive 100 skill points at first experience level when they begin play, and receive more as they gain experience levels. For each level gained, a Deceptor is allotted 50 skill points that can be attributed to any of the special abilities of their choosing.
Now, is skill point something that is restricted to this class?
Yes. So
this is a specific feature of this class.
Yes, it's based off of how they used to do the rogue abilities or the thief abilities, where you would have detect traps, disarm traps, move silent, climb walls. These were all abilities, and what you would do is you would basically have a certain amount of proficiency in each one, so you'd have like a percentile roll for it. So it was kind of based off of that. It was based off of where did you want to specialize. So you get 100 points, move them on all these specialties, and as you leveled up, you would level them up more. So up to 10 skill points, and I think that this was also a early build, so these numbers would have been adjusted with my DM over time. These were probably just the initial easy numbers that I wanted to do. So up to 10 skill points can be attributed to a single special ability per level. So you can't just put all of them in one ability. You can only do up to 10 per level.
Okay.
So you were maxed out at how much you could learn in one particular area. A skill point is equal to 1% chance of success on a percentile roll. So the idea is that you have ability A, B, C. You can't just put all 100 into A and never fail.
Yeah.
Level 1, you can only put 10% into level A, 10% into level B. So at level 1, you'd have a 10% chance of success on that skill. The next level, you can only put 10 more percent. So it will take you 10 levels before you could master any one thing. And now that I'm looking back on it, I would probably cut all of this in half now. Because by level 10, you shouldn't be... Well, and maybe by level 10, yeah. By level 10, you could master up to 10 of these skills. There are 26 of them. So at level 10, you can master up to half. By level 20, you can master almost all of them. So I think that's why I did 100 points. Because it's 1% of success per point. And the idea is by level 10, you can only master less than half. Because there are 26 abilities.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why we did that way. I'm remembering. So, for instance, a 40 would equal a 40% chance of success, meaning that a player must roll 40% chance or better on percentiles in order to successfully achieve. That is incorrect. 40% or better is not a 40% chance of success. It would be 40% or under, because it's a 40% chance of success, 60% chance of failure.
Yes.
So, this is written backwards. See? This is definitely an early build, because my DM would not have allowed that. Blah, blah, blah. During the character creation, the player must choose one of the following role types for their special abilities. This is sometimes a decision... This is a one-time decision and it cannot be changed. Let me know, Kage, if this sounds familiar at all. But this was way back 8 years ago, again, before High Point existed, but this was a choice I made for this class. During the character creation, the player must choose one of the following role types for their special abilities. This is a one-time decision and cannot be changed in the future.
Oh.
There is the high roll. Choosing this option means that the player must roll above a 100 minus the skill point indicated on the percentile roll. Low roll, choosing that they must roll below the skill point indicated. Or a called roll. Choosing this option means that the player must choose high or low before every special ability roll. Their choice will follow the above rules. Sound familiar?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I've had that rule for a very long time, my friend.
I enjoy it very much.
So yeah, so the idea is that if you choose high, that means if you have a 40% chance, you have to roll above a 60 in order to succeed. If you chose low roll, that means that if you have a 40% chance, you have to roll 40 or lower on percentile rolls. And called means every time you roll, you would call it high or low, how you were feeling right then and there. But once you chose, that would be how you use these abilities forever. So just kind of a unique way of, again, especially because way back in the day, I played with a group of people, that DM and that GM group, you know, they were very big on letting everybody have their own personal beliefs. So some people believed in dice control, some people believed in energy control and, you know, personalize their dice. This is where, you know, a lot of my house rules came from this gaming group, where you don't touch other people's dice. Die falls on the floor, nobody touches it but the owner unless they give you, you know, permission. It's a personalized thing. Some people get really big on that. Don't touch my dice, it influences them. I'm totally down with that. So I keep those kind of house rules to keep the vibe going, right? Everybody should have that kind of vibe, and that's where this one is. And some people just said, I can feel it in the moment, so I want to call it. I want to know in the moment. But some people are like, no. Percentile rolls, those are meant to be rolled low. Some people believe that. Some people are like, I want high numbers. I always want... So instead of me choosing it, the player got to choose it.
I like it.
Note, see additional special ability information at the end of the appendix for information on skill points over 100. So there was a plan for being able to go over guaranteed.
I like it.
So
Listen, I only wanted 2 of these things, and I'm going to max them the heck out.
Right. So at first level, Deceptors choose their first special abilities using the initial 100 skill points allotted to them. Note, during the initial allotment, the player Okay, there's another point. During the initial allotment, the player must use increments of 5 points, 5 of the special ability points per choice, within a minimum or with a maximum. During the initial allotment, the player must use increments of 5 per special ability. So you can't just put 1 in an ability. It's in increments of 5. So 5% increments.
So
it was easy
that
math.
being the case, and the max being 10 per level, you could only be able to put in twice to any given...
Correct.
Okay.
But again, it was making math easy instead of doing 1 point at a time and then just, you know,
Right.
It was just 5 points at a time. And this is just during the initial allotment. So the initial allotment, they must go in increments of 5 of their choice with a minimum of 10 and a max of 13. So this is the very first time you choose your character, your first points, your first 100. Mm-hmm. You must choose your abilities. Whatever ability you choose, this one time only. Minimum of 10. So your first ability is a 10% chance of success. So all your first abilities will be a 10% chance.
Got it.
But you can put up to 15. So you can have 10 or 15, and then in the future they go up by 5.
Got it.
Again, see, Cosmic, you're not the only one who doesn't write perfectly. And this will leave players with the following options: 10 special abilities with 10 points each. So you could have right out the gate, you can have 10% chance of succeeding in 10 different abilities. You can have 9 abilities, 2 with 15 and 7 with 10.
Okay.
8 abilities, 4 with 15, 4 with 10, or 7, 6 with 15, and 1 with 10. So that's how you could build your character right out the gate. You could have 10, 9, 8, or 7 special abilities with varying amounts of
So if I wanted
skill.
all of my abilities to have 15s in them,
You'd have to choose 7 abilities with 15, and 1 will have 10 to even out the play. And again, that's why I did that, because I didn't want you to be able to have a shit ton of high rank stuff.
yeah.
But I wanted you to test out all of the flavors of this. And again, another good use of the term of this, because this class has 26 flavors, 26 special abilities. So
But
flavor
after
as in
this
the...
point, after this point, there's no limit in how much I can put into one.
Up to 10. I think the... previously, up to 10 points can be attributed to a single ability per level, and skill point is... Yeah, so level 1, when you first create your character, this is how you do it. Then every level after this, you're going to get 50 points. You have to use them in increments of 5, but you can put up to 10 in any one stat per level.
At that point, do I have to use all my points then? I mean,
I do think I wrote that down. Let's continue. I'm going to say that if I remember correctly, I do believe I allowed you to save them.
Okay.
I do believe you, because just like with no, my DM's ruling used to be that if you didn't use it like XP, you had to use up XP.
But you could turn XP into like gold or something like that, right?
You can. Well, I don't know if you could turn it into gold, but he did allow you to you could imbue things like your magical items and stuff, or any things you could give those XP.
That's right.
Which is what you've been, I think, experiencing. No, that's Fixie. She's been doing that with her weapon. But yes, basically because XP was use it or lose it. I think same thing. Maybe it was use it or lose it, but we'll see if I make a note of that.
Right.
Okay, so that's how the special abilities played out. So, the Deceptor special abilities table shows the development of many of the Deceptor's special abilities. The column on the left is the Deceptor's experience level. Cross-reference this level with the skill they're trying to use. Each number on the table above is percentile chance, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so basically all this is a description of this part of what it was. I made this little easy like roll table. So it was the idea of you would put what special ability you had, how many points you had in it, and then that's how you would just judge, how you would keep track of it all.
Got you.
And then, let's see. So tell the Dungeon Master whenever you want to use whenever you want your Deceptor to use the special ability at the DM's discretion, either the player or the DM will roll the percentile. So it was always up to the DM on who would roll. And then based on the roll type chosen, the DM would inform the player if they are successful. So depends on, again, second edition, because this is written verbatim from the book and how it used to write. Second edition and before editions did actually specifically state that most of these rolls should be done by the DM. So it's a rule that I actually don't follow from the original editions, because there's a lot of rolls that were actually designed to be rolled by the DM and in secret. But that's why I wrote it like this. But for the most part, I let players roll everything that they want. I find that if you are a DM and you are having trouble with metagaming, people not really role playing through all of it, like like some people don't want to role play a bad roll. They're just like, oh, okay, I missed. You know what I mean? Like they don't really want to like vibe it up. That's where you can start to use this technique where you do a lot of the rolls. When they want to do something outside of an attack roll and a damage roll, you can do those rolls and then be more descriptive about it instead of letting them just be like, oh, okay, nothing happened. If you don't have players like that and you want them to be more fulfilled, you can you hide those rolls from them, and it allows you to have a little bit more control instead of them just kind of like crapping on the situation because of a bad roll.
Right.
Okay, so now we have the XP table. It's pretty large. I'm just going to kind of let it go through the screen real quick. It's not going to be easy for a lot of y'all, but it's basic. It's just the, as you can see here, that goes up to level 50. So there's your first 20 levels. You can see that one right there. That's where it would normally end. And it just keeps on going up until level 50. So this one is basically level in the first column, XP amount in the second column, and then needed for next level. So that's what this is actually, if you guys will see here. That's all this really is. It's an easy XP table, just like you would find in the book. And I mathed out all these numbers. So followed the rogue, the thief one for a minute. But this is basically the concept of that's how much XP it would take to get to your current level, and then how much it would take to get to the next level. And then it just keeps on going.
I see an asterisk over there. Is there a...
Yes, there are asterisks at the bottom. So, outside of this table, this is all basically just an XP table. That's all it's telling you.
Okay.
So, asterisks are at 5th, 10th, and 20th, and 50th level. So those asterisks mean the following. Level 5, Deceptor gains gains a 5% magic resistance to illusion, gaze, glamour, and compel/fear spells. They gain an additional 5% magic resistance every 5 levels thereafter. Because you're a Deceptor, you are a master. This is the mastery of deception and manipulation. So you see right through illusions, gaze spell, or you have a 5% resistance. So it's not a 5% chance to save versus spell. So this is an older mechanic of magic resistance. Some races actually had pure magic resistance. Mm-hmm. And I actually still have a holdover of this in some races. You actually have seen this on my character sheet, the magic resistance part. Mm-hmm. Some players will have that. But it's one of those things where another holdover from my DM, those are one of the few things I don't remind my players about. I will tell you about it. I will let you know if you have magic resistance, and then it's on you to use it. And I always put it right next to the saving throws. And the idea is that you can save versus spell, right? If I say, hey, you're going to have a spell coming at you, save versus spell, you can do your save. But if you remember that you have magic resistance, it's on you to remember to use that first. And magic resistance is just that. It's basically a percentage chance to just gone. That magic is gone. Mm-hmm. Some get elemental types and others just get pure. So this one is when it comes to any illusion, gaze, anything that would, trick you. Starting at level 5.
Stuff like somebody trying to dominate you.
Like psionics?
No, like there's a spell in 5th edition.
Like command word?
Kind of like command word, like commanding someone to do
It would
stuff.
depend on if it falls under illusion, gaze, glamour, but that also is the compel.
Yes.
Could fall under the compel.
Yeah.
It would fall under the compel/fear. So basically, again, anything that is, because again, it's anything that isn't real, you're going to see, the idea is you'll see through it.
Yeah.
You'll see through a deception.
What happens in situations like that is they make your allies look like enemies, and they make you think that they're your ally and all this extra.
So, yeah, so the idea is that you can't be got. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You just can't be got. But that's 5% at level 5, and then 5% added every 5 levels. So it's not 1% per level after that. It's level 10, you'll have 10%, level 15, 15%, and so on. Okay. But you won't have 6% at level 6.
Got it.
At level 10, Deceptors gain the ability to cast magic user spells from this... excuse me. Let me start over. At level 10, Deceptors gain the ability to cast magic user spells... Magic users... Oh... Spells from a magic user. Magic user type spells. Magic user type spells from spell scrolls at level. So normally you wouldn't be able to, because again, in the old days, and I did this in the D&D, I talked about this in my D&D Discord, scrolls and spell scrolls were a little bit different. Scrolls of magic were just scrolls that anybody could use. Spell scrolls where you had to be able to have that in your class. Yeah. So if you were a certain type of spellcaster and it wasn't within your class to cast that spell on a spell scroll, you can't cast that spell scroll. But you can cast scrolls of magic. So there was a difference between scrolls and spell scrolls.
Could there be a scroll of fireball and a spell scroll of fireball?
I don't honestly remember how it differentiated way back then. Okay. I just remember, because I remember I had that holdover in the Discord, because there was an older scroll versus spell scroll. And the idea was that I think the spell scrolls had to be, you can only cast a spell scroll if it was within your ability as a magic user, whereas scrolls are just anybody can cast that has magical potential. I just don't remember
types of scrolls that would be a scroll.
I don't think spell scrolls were always their typical type of magic. I think they had to be I think you can get a spell scroll that if it's an illusion type magic. I don't remember all the details. I'd have to look that up. That'd be a good deep dive. But the idea was that any Deceptor, regardless of, because again, you're not a magic user, you're not a magic class. So at level 10, you can now cast spell scrolls like magic users at level, and you have a 25% chance of failure. So you have 25% chance it just won't work and it'll use up the scroll, but at level, as in if you were equal to that mage's level of 10.
So
if it takes a mage level of 12, you have to wait till you're level of 12. But once you reach level 10...
Oh, it's mage level. Okay.
Yeah. So whatever,
I was trying to figure out is it spell level or...
Yeah, not at level 10 you can cast level 10 spells, but like if the spell scroll would require a mage at level 13 to cast it, you have to be level 13 to cast it.
Okay.
And then at level 20, Deceptors gain the ability to cast magic user spells up to 5th level. 50% chance of failure. So at 20th level, you now basically become a magic user. And you can cast up to 5th level spells. So, again, stick with it. Don't multi-class. And you will reap benefits. Now, granted, I look back on this and I go, that should be illusionary magic. Up to 5th level. I would probably say not any magic.
I mean, I could see some like conjuration potentially depending upon the class.
I wouldn't say any
yes.
cast magic user spells now. I would say if you're gonna the spells, being able to cast from scrolls I like, but being able to cast straight up spells, it would have to be limited to illusionary, gaze. Yeah. Basically all the same ones I listed before. Illusion, gaze, glamour, compel, fear spells. You have access to those up to 5th level.
Have you ever looked through the list of spells that the trickster rogues can use?
Exactly. Something like that.
Kind of like that.
I think I would just, in this respect, I would just use the same one at level 5 that you gained resistance to, same skill set. And then at level 50, immune to illusion, glamour, and compel fear spells. So once you reach level 50, you are immune to all of, you basically, no one's get, but again, level 50, if you haven't like ascended to godhood or immortality by now, you deserve to just basically see through bullshit.
I like it.
We probably won't go through this too much. I'm just going to put this up on screen real quick or up on the camera. This is basically just a list of saving throws. Again, old mechanic from 2nd edition, but this is how saving throws used to be written out. So you have the Deceptor saving throws. You have your death ray, poison, your magic wand, your paralysis, your breath weapon, all of that, and your saving throws based on level. And then down here we have later editions. So actually, if you'll notice, so that's why, I just answered my own question. So back on the first page, I talked about alignment being, you had to be of a neutral or chaotic. And then I said 1st edition, and then I said, I just listed out all those variations. Mm-hmm. That's not what I did, because back in the day, remember, this isn't High Point. So my DM had this really cool concept where like time and editions almost correlated. So if you went far back enough in time, you would actually revert to older editions, because he's had his realm through multiple editions.
Right.
So his realm adapts with the times, but he incorporated that into like the timeline of his realm, kind of. So this was made with that in mind, that when he became a god, it may not have been. Oh, that's right. This was back when we traveled time. We were in a campaign, or our gaming group, we got shoved back in time. We pissed off a boss, or not a boss. So 2 of the players on our team, right? They were dealing with a god, and they were given a mission to go basically, I think, like create a planet or continent, basically do god level shit.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. And the god got pissed that they didn't do this god level mission, right? Gods get pissy. So instead of punishing just the 2, he punished the whole party because we were associated with them, because we were supposed to help them. Mm-hmm. And he threw us literally back in time. So far back that we landed in 1st edition. We were playing 1st edition rules. So when I started creating this, my character was thrown back in time. My 2nd edition character was now living in 1st edition. So when I said 1st edition on the alignment, it's because I was accounting for the fact that he was going to create this in edition 1 and migrate it to 2nd edition. So when you see here, you'll see here, Deceptor. All the saving throws, you see how the first one looks a little bit odd? Remember, I flubbed that line almost. I said Death Ray. And I was like, why Death Ray? Because in later editions, it was poison and it was paradeath. Paralysis death is 2nd edition. There it is, paralysis death. In 1st edition, it was Death Ray / poison. This is literally because I built this was being built in first edition, but the plan was we were eventually going to make our way back. So if he would have ascended in first edition, he would have brought this with him. So I had to write this because I never knew where it was going to exist. And especially because if we travel time again and he built it in one edition and then moved to the other, it would technically exist in both. So we needed rules for this is how crazy my DM was in terms of what we had to think of. You see why I enjoyed this? I loved building this stuff.
It's definitely a thing. I really enjoyed because, like I said, I had a player who really enjoyed like making stuff, and I really enjoyed the getting the back and forth, creating input. It's a lot of fun. It's very cool.
All right, so continuing along, and again, if you've ever seen a class description from like a second edition book or a first edition book, again, you will recognize this. So now we have higher experience levels. So when a Deceptor reaches name or 9th level, the named level, he is considered a guide. When a Deceptor reaches prestige or 30th level, he is considered a master of deception. So these are titles that you will gain if you continue. Land owning Deceptors. If you've never heard of this concept, this is, again, I think this is AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons first edition concept. Land owning was a concept of pretty much all classes. So you could be a land owning fighter, you could be a land owning thief. This would allow you, and you'll see how this works. But yes, land owning, as in you would get to, like fighters would get to establish like a training location. Thieves, you could make a headquarters for like a guild, and once you're like level, like in the older editions, once you reach level 10, you could start gaining followers. You were so known that you basically could make like 1d4 followers a month, and you would, as a landowner, you would basically establish a location, and these are where the followers would go and train and become mercenaries for you. You would basically get these people who were like, I've heard your stories of being a great warrior, I want to follow you. Teach me how to sword fight. And you just get hirelings. You just get these people who can go do stuff for you in game. So that was a mechanic, right? So the landowning was a big deal about this. So, of course, landowning Deceptor, right? So landowning Deceptors. Name level Deceptors, and it was always named level. So fighters at named level. So 9th level or higher. So named level Deceptors may construct a fort. So again, fighters had to construct a keep. Thieves had to construct a hideout. Deceptors construct a fort. So these are all just names, but every class had what they had to establish in order to gain followers, because you needed a location for people to come find you. So each fort, upon its creation, must take the form of one of the following. Same exact thing. You would hear this in the fighter. Has to take form of a training compound or a stable. Thief, had to take form of a bar or a gambling hall or a base. You had to have these things. So for a Deceptor, it had to take the form of one of the following. A dominion, a hideout, or a stronghold. So basically it had to be by these, naming conventions, some sort of structure that fell within the concept of a stronghold, a hideout. But it's just a naming convention of what it is and how you wanted to display it. And each will attract its respective followers. Oh, and whatever you built will bring in different types of followers. So like a fighter could build a training compound and bring in people that he could hire to fight. Or he could build a farm or like a keep and get people who would follow him to be farmers. Like depending on what you would get, a thief could get assassins, or he could make a place to get assassins, or a thief could get info people, or he could get pickpockets. Depending on what you build will depend on the type of people you garner. So in this case, if you made a dominion, so again, each will attract its respective followers. If you make a dominion, a Deceptor who wishes to establish a dominion must first acquire the appropriate land in order to fashion in the fashion of a landowning fighter would, as described in the fighter section of the same name. So you have to go about getting the land in game just like a fighter would. Mm-hmm. If successful, the Deceptor can attract the same followers as a fighter of the same level and title. So these are just followers, generalized people who would come for you. Hideout. A Deceptor who wishes to construct a hideout, a fortified house in a city, cave, or a cave network or something, must acquire the appropriate space as a thief would. So a Deceptor, so as you can see here, a Deceptor is basically, I'm basing it off of the different classes. Yeah. So a fighter would have gotten a dominion, a thief would make a hideout. So again, it has to take place in a house of a city or a cave network. You must acquire it just like a thief would. The Deceptor who has constructed a hideout will attract 1d4 first level apprentice thieves who come to learn from the master. These will generally, though not always, be loyal to the Deceptor, but will not automatically be replaced by others if they die or leave. So you don't just have that number,
Right.
you will have to replace. The character will have to recruit new thieves himself if they leave or die. A Deceptor cannot start a Thieves Guild of their own until they have achieved at least Prestige level 30 and have attained the title of Master Deceptor. So you can't make your own Thieving Guild. So if you want fighters as a Deceptor, and this is the idea. So this was the idea, right? Is if you're a fighter, you'll make a Dominion and you'll bring in more fighters. If you're a thief, you'll bring in more thieves. As a Deceptor, who do you want to have been known as? The idea is that you're a Deceptor, right? So if you're a Deceptor and you want muscle because you want other people to go do your dirty work, you as the Deceptor set up a Dominion as a master fighter who people will come flock to. You basically are literally acting like you're some great fighter. Or you set up a hideout and you're basically tricking people they're basically coming to learn from a master thief who doesn't exist. The concept is you created this persona of a master thief that they're coming to learn from, but now they're your pawns.
Now, the question is, what do you need to keep that up? Because theoretically, wouldn't they be able to create for wizards? And
So
magic
if you look it
users
up in the
like
book,
that too?
if you look it up in the book, just like with again, it says you have to follow how a thief would do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to establish these things as it would in the book, a thief or a fighter. And the way that they do that is you have to have you have to find the place, you have to have the funds, you have to be able to establish it initially.
Mm-hmm.
Then each of those do have upkeeps. So a fighter has to pay for upkeep, has to pay to feed people, has to pay to run the place. If there's, like, my DM had property taxes. Believe me, in my DM, we used to be so strict. If we wanted to stuff like this, like, he would literally have gaming sessions that was just accounting. We would literally have pages of, like, actual accounting books and have to account. Like, how long has it been? A month? This is how many followers do you have? This is how much food they would have eaten. How much does that cost? Do you have the gold to cover that? And if we didn't, we literally would have to fill out a balance sheet. And if we didn't have enough money, they would literally lose people or gain people. And it's like, it was crazy. He would literally make us do it all. So again, the idea would be if you choose a Dominion, you have to upkeep it like a fighter would. If you choose a hideout, you have to upkeep it the same way it would in the book as a thief would. You have to pay for the upkeep on taxes. You have to pay for food. And some of these people do require payments. Like the fighters, you actually have to pay them. Thieves can usually pay themselves, but you have to pay to room and board them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you as the DM would be deciding on how the upkeep would. This is based on the book because that's how my DM wanted it to be written. I would just, not arbitrarily, but I would make it make sense. How many followers do you have? What kind of place did you set up? Where did you set it up? Here's how much it would cost to, like, what I would do is I would give currently my players like a scale, right? Well, based on where you are and the type of place you have set up, it would, at bare minimum, just to keep these people alive, would cost you this. And to make them, just live lavishly, it would be this. Pick your in-between. And then I would reward them. The more they gave, the more their followers would have, right? If they said, no, I just want my followers literally the bare minimum, maybe they're not as loyal, maybe they're not as happy. But if he's like, no, feed them as much as they could. But if he does too much, if he's like, no, I want to give them as much as I possibly can, maybe when he hires them, they're half drunk all the time. Because he's
they're lazy, they don't like...
So I would do that now. I would say, here's the minimum to make them alive, and here's about the maximum you can afford. And if they choose... Yes.
Some kind of...
She has her own estate, and she has a lot of people that she pays out, but she also has an accountant.
And she has...
So she doesn't have to worry.
Stupid amounts of money that she doesn't have to worry about.
But that would be the idea, is you would have to make sure that you do it. And again, I wouldn't have done that back in the day. I would have just said, hey, here's what the book says, just pay it and you're fine. Right. But nowadays I would probably do the whole, here's the bare minimum and here's what you can afford, where do you want to fall, and let them do the trial and error. You barely pay them enough, well, they're going to barely give you enough of the work, right? Minimum wage mentality. But if you give them too much, they're going to abuse it. They're going to be drunk all the time. You're literally just giving them barrels and barrels of wine every night. And then you call them and half of them don't show up because they're all blackout drunk and the other half don't even know how to hold their sword right. But if you pay them right in the middle, they're super happy and loyal, but they still have a reason to do their job. Because then you could do that. Maybe you're not paying them the whole amount so they always show up, but maybe they're not that good at their job. Well, why? Well, you pay them too much. They don't have to keep good at their skills if you pay them. So you pay them enough to make this place better than living on the street, but not so much that living off the street isn't still worth it, right?
Right.
You don't want them living on the street, but you want them to still need their skills to pay for the nicer things. So you give them good food, you give them access to alcohol, and you give them a good place to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't give them so much that they get to live a lavish life. You still want them to go out, steal, and do their job to earn the nicer lifestyle while knowing they'll never drop below
what most restaurants do to servers.
Yeah. But what you
We're
want...
not going to pay you a living wage. We're going to pay you just enough to keep you here.
Exactly. And still doing your job.
It's still...
But that's the idea, right? Is I would do that where I would give them a range and let them try to figure it out. So, as a hideout, blah, 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 and then you can... Once you have a hideout... You can start a thief guild at level 30. Same thing, fighter guild at level... You'd be able to make a fighter guild at level 30. Excuse me. And now, a stronghold. A Deceptor who wishes to construct a stronghold must first locate and acquire an unoccupied territory within a forest, or build a stronghold enough... Or build strong enough relations with a local elven tribe in order to gain asylum within their territory. He may build a special kind of stronghold deep in a forest. This stronghold must... pleasantly blend in with its surroundings, usually a natural site of great beauty. Typical locations are tops of great trees, on the edges of quiet vales, or behind rushing waterfalls. Because of the effort to beautify the work, the construct costs as much as similar work if made of stone. In order to develop a friendship with the animals of the forest, birds, rabbits, squirrels, foxes, bears, etc., as would an elf, the Deceptor must obtain at least 50 skill points in one of the following special abilities, which aren't listed out, but there would be like specialty ones of that. Right. So a stronghold is something that I think was only something elves could make. So again, it's more of you have the domain, which is kind of like a keep, which can be built anywhere. You have the hideout, which has to be kind of hidden somewhere, like locally, and then the stronghold is something that is blended into the area, which was again an early concept for and that was for elves. So again, you could work with elves and earned a place within their area, or you would have to literally buy out land and build it from the ground up. Right. And then, of course, if you wanted to, again, because strongholds were very eco-friendly, so you'd have to want to be like in with all of the... Because again, the idea of the elves, why they do it in forests, because the local animals would be their warning signs, right? Birds would flutter, there's someone over there. Deer would run. But though the better your situation, the more they would try to warn you. So you have certain abilities that would lead you to have affinity with animals, right? So again, the Deceptor class has 26 special abilities. Some of those would have been for things like animal friendship and all of that. Gotcha. So once these abilities are obtained, all normal animals... So again, there's a prerequisite list. Once you have them all obtained, and probably a minimum like 20%, what would end up happening is once these abilities are obtained, all normal animals within 5 miles of the stronghold will be friendly towards the Deceptor's dwelling there. So essentially, they'll accept you. Everything within 5 miles that lives there accepts you and your presence. And that's very good because you don't want them wanting to kick you out.
Stuff like packs of wolves and things like that?
Everything that's natural there accepts you if you have these prerequisites met. Animals will be able to warn of approaching strangers, carry news of events, deliver short messages to nearby places, etc. So if you're in a forest and you have villages nearby, you can send and receive messages. The idea is, again, you're becoming part of the ecosystem, but you have to have certain abilities to do that. In return for the services, the animals will expect the Deceptor to help protect them. After 1 year of successful residence, so that means if people come to burn the city or if there's like a natural disaster, if you don't do anything, they will then revolt against you. So the idea is that you were there...
Poached or something like that.
Exactly. So you are there to protect the forest as a whole, including them. The animals expect them to help to protect them. After 1 year of successful residence, the stronghold can, with the DM's discretion based on local relations and attitudes, attract 1d6 elves per month who wish to take up residence within the Deceptor's immediate territory and stronghold. So essentially, they can live in the area.
They're not trying to become a Deceptor, but they are just hanging out in
the area of the stronghold, kind of help. Again, the whole concept is the strongholds to help keep the force going. So they would be there to basically be like, hey, we see what you're doing here. We'll be in on it. After 100 elves have established permanent residence, the Deceptor can act as the leader of his own tribe and will gain the loyalty of the elves within his territory. The elves, they will protect the stronghold, the areas surrounding the stronghold, and as they would in any other elven tribe. So the idea is you can get 1d6 per month, and if you're there long enough, you can eventually, if you have 100, you will basically start your own elven tribe. So just like the fighter can attract enough fighters, become a guild master.
Yeah.
Thief can become a guild master. You can basically become a tribe master or the head of a tribe.
Okay.
All right. Making good time. Prestige level. So, prestige level Deceptors, which is the 30th, may construct a school. A controlled or owned space, dwelling, cave network, territory, etc., which can house and accommodate at least 11 bodies in a single gathering. A Deceptor who has claimed a school can begin to recruit 1 to 3rd level apprentices. So not just 1, 2, 3. These are now up to 3rd level NPCs.
Okay.
Very different than just getting followers. These
Very
are
much so.
1 to 3rd level apprentices. So fully leveled NPCs. These apprentices will act as followers, similar to a fighter's followers, until at least one has reached name level, at which point the Deceptor can place the named level apprentice in charge of the school for periods of time. If the Deceptor leaves their apprentice unattended for longer than a month, the apprentice will seek new guidance and no longer be considered followers.
Okay.
So again, don't leave them behind. But again, the idea is that as you are doing a school, once one gets to 9th level, you can now leave for long periods of time, go on quests and adventures, and he can keep the school running for short periods of time. The Deceptor cannot leave the school unattended for durations lasting longer than 3 months until a 20th level apprentice has been placed in charge. Otherwise, the school and the apprentices will disband and the Deceptor will have to start again.
Dang.
DM note. There is a 30% chance the apprentice left in charge will make claim to the other followers and they will band together to seek out new guidance. If this happens, there's an additional 10% chance the leader will respond negatively to the Deceptor in the future. If they do not band together, they will all treat the Deceptor as they would any other at their level. So they would respect you at whatever you are, but you're no longer their master. And you have the chance that he will take
after the 3 months.
Yeah, this is after you leave them. And the idea of the 20% chance that they'll band together means he's basically trying to take over. And if you try to come back and be like, this is my place, he's going to be like, who says? So it's going to be that whole power play. Mm-hmm. And depending on how you left, that power play may be you need to kill me to take it back because it's mine now. Or it may be just a game of power of are you going to back out or are you going to push him and press him, and now you have someone who's obviously a traitor or potentially mutiny. Right. But again, all of these things for the DM to play with, right? And again, I'm actually really impressed with myself. How I even thought about after 3 months, if you're gone, they'll start to take. I'm actually kind of impressed with younger me.
I like it.
When a 20th level apprentice has been placed in charge, the Deceptor is no longer required to return to the school, but will remain as the headmaster of the school. So once you have a 20th level, the school is yours. You have a dedicated person. They're not going to try to out you just by being gone. DM note, once the 20th level apprentice in charge has reached prestige, 30th, they may challenge the player for rights to the school. So if you leave a 20th level in charge, you can leave as long as you want. But if they ever reach 30th level, they can turn around and be like, bitch, this is my school.
So they can level them.
It's more of a, again, if you have this, if you're a higher level and you're using this, it will generate experience, it will generate stuff, and I will level it up. If you start this at level 30 and then you're at level 50, that dude's probably going to have reached level 30 by now, right? Because it's from my point of view, it was all about how much you use it, and it would level up with you if you're using it. So if you put someone in charge and don't ever use it, maybe they'll get to 25th level after a long enough time. But if you're constantly using the fact that you're the headmaster of this place, you're using it for money, you're using it to generate followers, and you're using them, hell yeah, that dude's going to get some... Because you want him to be better, right? He's going to be better for you. And the idea is that, again, if he's that good, but you aren't goody with him, right? So if you aren't treating him well, he's going to take over because he doesn't like you. But maybe you treat him too well and he sees a weakness that you're not on your game. Everything's a sliding scale. So kind of like how I would now do the whole how much would you put in to keep it going. Same thing. This was originally designed to, if you don't treat him well enough, he's going to take you out of spite. But if you treat him too well, he's going to take you out because he thinks that you have a weakness.
I mean, to be very real, all of these features play very well into the class's nature.
Yes.
If you're
the whole point.
To see, it almost gives me lightweight Sith vibes. You got a master, and the apprentice is always trying to take out, kill,
100%.
or whatever, you know.
No, there and I didn't do it intentionally. Like I wasn't thinking of that at the time,
sure.
but there was obviously, you can tell there's influence, right? And I'm one DM too. I will always understand, even if I don't believe I took it from something, or I'm like, oh, that's where I got the idea. I will never deny that I'm sure that's a big influence. I am sure in somewhere in my brain when I was making this, I knew enough about the Sith at the time not to think, oh, this is like the Sith.
Right.
But when I'm doing it, going, oh, that sounds cool.
Yes.
Well, and again, I was just thinking the Deceptor. The concept is you can have a 20th level, and he's your, you know, you leveled him up from.
Yeah.
But of course, his whole concept, it was in that other page. Deceptors are required to never stop. So I even wrote it again. Like you said, I'm glad you said it. It's that whole thing of. You know, kind of like the Sith. You never know what's going on. But even this right here, on the very first page, much like thieves, deceptors are used misdirection, blah, blah, blah. They have seen the power of religion and it has over its followers and seek to harness that power for their own purpose. They strive to gain power over the weak, influence over the strong, and are always working to increase their ability. That right there, I wrote that into the very first page of why it ties in that if you were not on your game, your follower will take you out. Not because we're evil, but the whole point is to consistently get better. And if you're better, do it. And again, the whole thing is, if you are goody, if the player does all of this, right, follows us to a T and isn't paying attention, and they're just like, yeah, I got a 20th level, cool, he's in charge of my school. Means you're not paying attention to any of this. You're just using it for the stats. Because if you're not making a relationship, if you're not all up in that dude's business, how do you know he's not deceiving you? He's a 20th level Deceptor, bro. If you are all like, it's a whole game, right? The class was meant to be a game in itself.
Very much
So anyway, so once 20th level, and once your 20th level apprentice in charge has reached 30th, they may challenge the player for rights to the school. If the 20th level apprentice in charge reaches 30th level before the player has returned, so you put him in charge and you leave. Now remember, if you kept tapping into it, I'm going to keep bumping his skills. But let's say he reaches 30th level before you ever return. So you've been gone for however long it took him to reach 10 levels of the highest rank. That's a lot of fucking XP. You have to be gone you basically have to have abandoned the school, right? So again, the whole concept is you're not required to come back, but you should. You should always check in and see what you guys are doing. But if you don't, if he reaches 30th level before the player returns, this takeover will happen automatically. And the player will have to challenge the new headmaster for the rights of the school. So if you leave and they've reached level 30, that's it. That's their school. They are the new headmaster. Because remember,
when you challenge them, is this going to be like a duel, or is this going to be like a Decepticon off? You know, it'd be like, all right, so here's the deal. I'm going to challenge you, but here's the game. I want us to see who can convince the king to let us marry their daughter.
Well, and that's the thing. And this is where the DM has a lot of fun, because it's all been on the PC. The PC can just be like, no, it's my school. Fuck off. You left. Because again, at 30th level, and remember, I did this, when you reach 30th level was the time you were able to start a school, right? You become a headmaster. Mm-hmm. And 20th level is when you can give them the rights to take over the school while you're gone. So when he reaches 30th level, he's now able to open a school. Just like you were. Mm-hmm. Well, where is he? In the school he's been running for the last 10 levels. Why would he start a brand new school? He has a school full of followers, full of people who have known him as the teacher. All he has to do is change his name to headmaster. And think about it. Everyone in that school, even if you think an NPC, if you give them a year per level, that's been 10 years. Everyone at that school wouldn't question that they're the headmaster. And think about this. If you're the DM, we got a new follow. Thank you so much, Wally, for the follow. I appreciate that. So think about this. You come back, right? You walk around the halls. Things don't seem that different. And then you reach the headmaster. And everyone's been looking at you weird. Everyone's like, oh, hey, I thought I just saw you up at the hall. And you're like, I just got back why do people keep thinking they see me? Or you go there and introduce yourself and people just laugh at you in your face. And they're like, what is going on here? I'm the fucking headmaster. Then you go and you find out the headmaster took your name. At 30th level, he said, fuck it. If he's not coming back, I'm him. and he deceived you know what I'm saying? Like so when you said, how do you challenge? The challenge is up to you as the DM. When the person challenges you for the school, you can set the terms. But when you come to challenge them, now challenging them doesn't mean directly. What if you come back and find out what happened? But you're a better Deceptor.
You just sit there,
you can
come back in as a student, start sowing seeds of deceit, and have all his people that came and got you in the first place revolt back against him and be like, bruh.
So Wally says, oh, hey, first time chat from Wally. Hello, long-time player / DM. Weather makes a difference always. Yes, so unfortunately, I don't know how long you've been watching Wally. Great topic. We did not really get to it. We had a small snippet. Normally on Mondays, what we'll do is we do a D&D homebrew review, usually viewer submitted, but today we're going over an old class of mine that I made like 8 years ago in a time long ago. And normally what we'll do is we'll do the homebrew review and then we'll get to the topic at hand to end the day with, but this was a little bit longer. We kept going on some side tangents, so we're probably not going to get to that specific topic today, but yes, we do, you just got here, yeah. So we do want to get to that topic eventually because we do want to talk more about how weather really affects gameplay both in and out of combat, but we're probably not going to reach that one today. It does happen with us, but I am here every Monday and Thursday. Kage joins me every Monday, so it's Monday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for D&D discussions, and then I do pop-up games, usually RPGs, on the weekends. So if you want, you can also hang out with us on Discord.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm going to just pop that in the chat, but you can also check us out on Discord. If you have any topics that you want us to talk about, or if you have any questions you want to hear us ask on, or you want to hear us talk about on stream, you can use the Discord to submit those, or just chat with us offline. And you can also submit things if you want to know our point of view. Like, let's say you're in the middle of a game, or you're just curious and you don't really want to wait till stream. There's another channel you can just ask us, and we'll just hit you up on, just raw right on the spot, like what we would do as a DM. But yeah, we're happy to have you. Sorry that we're not on the specific topic, but we do want to get through this because it is getting a little bit late. So we're going to continue with discussing this build that I did called the Deceptor class. So 30th level, he's going to try to come after you. It's up to the DM to decide how those challenges. But I'm glad that you brought that up. Again, if you know what's going on, you can slip in however you want. You are the Master Deceptor. You need to prove that you're better than him. So imagine being able to outclass him, literally. Okay, so and it will all happen automatically, and you will have to challenge it. So, special notes: a Deceptor may convert any fort into a school when able. So, when you become named, you can start a fort. If you wish, you can turn your fort into a school once you've prestiged, or you can create a new school. Okay. So it's an upgrade to your current, or you can keep your fort generating as is, and then go set up a school elsewhere.
Got you.
The Deceptor obtains the title of Headmaster once they have 10 or more apprentices within their school. This is considered the second highest title within the school. So not only do you have to be a 30th level to prestige, open a school, but then once you have 10 actual apprentices, then you're a headmaster. Then you officially get the title of headmaster. And titles in this respect were things that other people in your class, like other Deceptors, that would now just be like a thing. You are known as a headmaster, so other Deceptors, it would be an insult not to title you. Like, you would be...
military, and you're like, you don't not call a captain.
Or at least sir. So yeah,
exactly.
So for you to obtain 30th level and to become a headmaster, other Deceptors, even if they're just not in your region or not at all associated to you, it would be an insult for them not to call you Headmaster Kage. Yeah. It would just be, it is a, like fighters, if you saw an admiral, all fighters, even if you're non-military, would be like, I know that, I'm going to respect him because he's a warrior, right? That's the idea of that. So you gain the headmaster, and it matters, right? And it also mattered for the players, for NPCs. If you turned it, you walked up to a Deceptor, and you're like, oh, hey, what's going on with you? You're pretty high level, and like, I am Headmaster Corin. Like, oh, you got at least 10 motherfuckers who will willingly die for you. Hi, yes, it's because if someone just comes up to you and says I'm so and so, but if they say headmaster, you know what they've done.
Now the question is, in the Deceptor community, how common is it for a Deceptor to try and pretend to be
deadly
a headmaster?
It would be deadly. Now, granted, as anything, there are rules, just like even within Thieves, like there are rules, and yeah, sure, you're a Deceptor. Pull it off as long as you can. That would be one of the greatest deceptions of all time. But because this is built by, the Deceptor, by a god, the idea would be that there are certain things that would be harder. Like, so low levels, you could probably pass off as a headmaster to low levels. There's very little you're going to be able to hide from an actual headmaster. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
it would be unlikely for you to pose as a headmaster to a headmaster, but posing as a headmaster to
you could trick, like, again, you could put on a officer's uniform and trick a first year, but you're not going to walk into a first sergeant's office as a captain, and they're going to chew your ass 5 ways to hell.
You ever watched the anime Mob Psycho 100? There's this one episode where this guy who has no psychic powers at all, like, walks into, like, the enemy base of, like, the big bad, and all the little peon psychics come up to him, and he's always, like, wearing the suit, so he just looks like a professional.
Right.
And they're expecting the bosses of the whole psychic organization to come, and he just comes in, walking in there like he owns the place. He has no idea what's going on. But they all just look at him and assume he's the big bad boss.
Yeah.
And he just plays in the role. And he's like...
I like to call it, it's the Axel Foley move from Beverly Hills Cop, man.
Yes.
Eddie Murphy, it's the Axel Foley. Just walk up in there with an attitude, and everybody will just fold. And that's, again, I didn't think about Axel Foley when I made this, but I'm sure that concept was just be important, right? So some other things. Oh, yeah. So Wally also had... So he's actually been working... Sorry, I don't mean to assume there. Wally has been working on, having been working on a homebrew set for Earth 1580 with a Spelljammer type ship crash landing on Earth and introducing the world to a galaxy not unlike Treasure Planet, with the aliens being gnomes, dwarves, and such monsters from D&D. That is not fucking bad.
That would be kind of cool.
If you write any of this up, please join the Discord. Please submit anything. That is such a cool, like, lore concept of how to introduce D&D. Because, I mean, it's very similar to actually how High Point's built. I haven't done a deep dive into High Point, but a lot of the races have home planets. Like in my realm, there's a lot of home planets of actual races.
Yeah.
And some of them originated from these home planets, and some of them found their way and colonized for themselves.
Wally,
but that's such a cool concept.
You probably don't know this because you haven't seen us yet, but normally on Mondays we start with, like, homebrew review, and Cosmic he's one of the other viewers that is here. He's been pretty constant about sending in items. If you have any items or, like, classes or anything,
anything, like, homebrew that you want us to talk about,
we would love to, like, check it out
and just so you know, normally what we do with homebrew review is it's not like we're trying to tell you, like, what's wrong with it. So how we do homebrew review is we do a basic fresh read. Neither of us read it beforehand. We do it live, so you get our first reactions, and essentially we just walk through it. We read it here on live. We give our initial reactions as we're reading it, so as something strikes, we just have little sidebars. Once we get through the whole thing, we basically give our initial impression of as written, and then we'll discuss things on how it would work for us as players, as DMs. Like, for me, I'll say how I would use it as a player, whether I like it or not, and how I like it as a DM. I'll talk about how if I wanted it to fit in High Point, which is my realm. High Point's my little sphere of D&D. How it would have to fit, what I would have to modify to make it work with the mechanics. And then at the end, I just like to do, like, a little cheeky rating. I give it a 1 out of 10 high points. And basically the idea of the high points, again, isn't really saying you need to be better. High points are how close I am to wanting it in my realm. So, like, 10 out of 10 high points means I'm basically going to steal this idea and put some version of it. And again, I would always give credit where credit is due, but the idea is that the idea is so inspiring that I want to take those mechanics and put them in my world. Everything beyond that, anything lower than that, again, isn't a reflection of how good it is. It's purely a reflection of the more I dislike it, the more I wouldn't want to play it as a DM due to complications, the more I don't think it would fit in my realm, the more I would have to change in order for it to work in my realm, because I have very specific mechanics and physics. Those are what bring down the points. So a 3 out of 10 doesn't mean it's a crappy idea and that you should feel bad. A 3 out of 10 means I would have to put too much work to either make it interesting, make it work, or it would just cost me more than it would gain. And again, not a value, but a value to my realm only.
And plenty of the things that might not be scored well are like phenomenal. And you can tell, like,
or lore settings,
so cool.
Well, and again, there are
cool.
some things where I will be honest, if it fits perfectly with the setting, I will be honest and say it's amazing for that setting. But again, the high point is just its convertibility.
If you watch any of our old streams, listen to Cosmic Setting.
Cosmic Setting is awesome. We love talking about cosmic stuff. It says a captain on a pirate ship of the line is badly damaged and crash lands off the coast of Spain near the Strait of Gibraltar. And stealth up and sends drones to get info on the world that they landed on. And how they get to see the world from there and how it spawns. And again, based in like 1580, so you're already going back to that archaic time frame, which is again is how I like to present my world. In High Point, it's very much that, at least the planet you guys are on, is the archaic concept of like the medieval times, but with magic. And that's just the world excuse me. That's specifically the planet and the region that you're in. There are other planets, there are other higher technology and stuff. But yeah, and then you want to make an 8-person group play from that point. An 8. Wow, how long have you been DMing? Yeah. That, like, I'm not saying it's undoable. I've done large gaming groups. I mean, I've done 10+ gaming groups. But when someone comes in and says, "I want 8 people," you've been doing this a minute, my friend. Nobody wants 8. 1990s. Okay, I was gonna say nobody plans for 8 people.
So, question for you.
You and me, we're gonna be pretty good friends.
What edition do you play?
What edition do you currently play, and what is your favorite? Because if you don't know, you obviously don't know. You just got here. So High Point for some of my veteran fans out there. I'm glad. Wally, I'm glad you're here. So High Point is actually initially 2nd and 5th edition. My man, right here. Wally, you and me are going to be great friends, I can already tell. So High Point was originally created with 2nd edition. 2nd edition is just hands down my bread and butter. But I do the original concept of D&D where no edition is off limits. So basically it's a foundation of 2nd edition. But I use aspects of all of the other editions where it seems fit, just like basically just like the original wanted us to do, right? Looking at all of it as a giant compendium instead of different different versions of the game. And to give you a little bit of a history, if you don't go back and watch like some of my introductions, our very first podcast, my history is I've been playing for well over 10 years. My DM is a very veteran gamer. My DM actually got to play with Gary Gygax himself. So I've had a lot of experience. I have played through all of the editions. So I have played all the way back before AD&D. I have played Chainmail. My DM actually had a copy of Chainmail. So I got to play Chainmail, got to play Dungeons and Dragons. AD&D was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It was so interesting when it was Dungeons and Dragons first edition and then AD&D came out, and it was such a big deal. Played 3rd, played 4th, unfortunately. Now I play 5th a lot, especially in Discord. But been here a while, been doing a lot of this. So yeah, I'm glad you're here. And then so kind of a real recap. I don't think we covered this before you or after you got here, but this class build I'm doing was actually during a time frame. It's not High Point related. This was in my DM's realm. And this was back when we had gone back in time. So the way his realm worked was he had ways to where if you went so far back in time, you'd actually change editions because he had like set like benchmarks in his world. So when I wrote this class, we were actively in a gaming group that started in 2nd, got thrown into the past, back into 1st. So all of the rules changed. We had new character sheets, literally had to revamp how we played because the edition changed. So I wrote this class with the mindset that it might be created in the 1st edition time frame, but would live through into 2nd. So I actually had to write this with both 2nd and 1st edition ideas and mechanics. So kind of cool that we actually have someone out there who will understand more about where this came from, because that's really fantastic. 2nd and 1st to Crit Rocket. Oh yeah. Playing since '84, yeah. So you've been playing and DMing since the '90s, yeah. So you'll probably like some of the extra stuff we got in here. All right, so he'll actually probably understand like a lot of the way that I wrote this out to this class.
Right.
So let's go on to more of the special notes. So after they have 10 or more, they can be the headmaster. Additional note for the headmaster. Remember, it is also considered the second highest title within the school. Additional note, if title of headmaster has been obtained, all apprentices associated with the Deceptor school will refer to him as such within the confines of the schools. Otherwise, he is referred to as master. So if you're inside the school, it would be Headmaster Kage. Gotcha. Anywhere else, they would all refer to you as Master Kage.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's just to distinguish the understanding of, like, in school and outside.
Right. No, I get that.
And again, that's also one of those things. If you know someone's a headmaster, a fellow Deceptor, you may call them master or headmaster. You would normally, from another point of view, like you to another Deceptor, it would be more formally or more understood that you would call him headmaster because he is not your master. So to call him headmaster is a respect of his title, but even if you weren't in his school, identifying him as a headmaster is more respectful. You could call him master, even if you're not a headmaster, but most Deceptors wouldn't take the knee to another.
I grew up doing Taekwondo, and so a lot of the way we interacted with our instructors, you had different titles depending on like what rank you were.
Gotcha.
When you first got your black belt, you were a Choganim. Then the next was a Busabanim, and then after that you were Sab. And so like in the school, you would be very specific. Like if you were a Choganim, you called him a Choganim. If you were a second degree, you were a Busabanim, like not a Sabanim.
Yeah.
But then outside of that, like whenever you would go do like tournaments or stuff like that, not everybody used the same terminology. So a lot of the time, you would just call them by a generic one, depending on like how close you were to that rank.
So like actually having like staff sergeant versus sergeant, just like you would just kind of shorten it. And that was kind of the way of this. So the idea was like, again, I was trying to plan this out to have a lot of inner workings, for different situations.
Right.
Let's see. The monsters in D&D will always be aliens and intelligent and sapient. So Slime will have an intelligence and be a playable character in his world. So
That time I got reincarnated as a slime.
That's actually kind of a cool concept. I'd be really interested to see how he does the alien concepts. Very, very. It reminds me of almost doing like almost a slight crossover with like Hitchhiker's Guide, like really opening up the concept that everything is sentient. So I like that add-on. More special notes for the Deceptor class. So a Deceptor may construct any number of schools they wish. However, they cannot be headmaster of more than 3 schools at a time. So
now, by whose standard? Like, who's keeping track?
Well, so if you open up 3 schools and you have, 10 each, each one you will be considered the headmaster for. If you open up a 4th school, you can't gain the benefits of a 4th headmastership.
Okay,
so you'd have to give up
just mechanically
one of the schools. You could go to you would open up all of them, and you are the owner of all of them. You open them all up, but you would not be considered like the authority at that school. You are the highest authority. You open it. It's dedicated to you. It's named after you. Everyone respects you. But you're not the headmaster. You don't do classes there. You are not direct. You have someone running it. So there's a different type of benefits. But remember, the idea of the schools is you get followers, you get benefits from being the headmaster. It's to cap how much of those benefits that you would get. But there are different benefits to owning more schools than you're a headmaster of. Because now you have a lot of headmasters who are beholden to you, because guess what? When you become 30th, what do you get to do? Open a school. But if you have a headmaster who gave you a school, and then open up another school, and then open up another school, and he said, hey, by the way, I'm going to open up a 4th one. This school is yours. So, remember me. So the idea is now you have a headmaster who has his own school, who was opened by you. So think about this. The level of concept is he is great, right? He's fine. But in order to ever come close to the respect you have, guess what he has to do? Start over. Because as long as he's a headmaster, he has all that respect, but he doesn't have the respect of opening his own school. So keeping headmaster...
steal that respect from him by, say I want to open up my 4th school, and because I can't be the headmaster of all of them, I have been away from my first school for the longest, right? And that person is coming up, and so I go back there and I'm being like, you know what? I'm going to gift my school to you. And like maybe he was already planning his revolt. Maybe
but he gets what he needs.
But now he gets it free of charge, and I stay in good graces or whatever.
Yeah.
And now I got somebody on my back.
Well, and that's my point. Is the fact is at 30th level, a Deceptor can open a school, but they can also be gifted a school. And again, the idea is that he wants to open a school and you let him take over yours. So the idea is, it's mechanically speaking, he's just any other headmaster. And you are no longer the headmaster of that school, so you don't get the headmaster benefits. But what you do get is a headmaster beholden to you. And unless that NPC goes and makes their own school from the ground up, from scratch, and earns the same level of respect, they'll always be under you. That's the idea of the Deceptor, is you can be the master of a school, but if you didn't open it, if that school is not named for you or by you or after you, what are you? You're just a fucking janitor. You are just a steward. And imagine that mindfuck. You could have 10 schools, only 3 of them, and someone comes to you and be like, and what are you? A fucking steward? The fucking janitor I hired?
Somebody else's
Again,
work.
and then imagine, not only that, but you gave them a school. So not only do they have that to contend with, but you own 5 other schools. Even if they start from scratch and open their own, you still own 4 more than them.
Come for me, bro.
Like, so the whole point,
Take you some time
the
to
whole
get
thing
here.
about this is by dedicating to this class, those benefits just never stop. No matter what you do with this class, the more you push it, imagine having a headmaster at your whim. Like, imagine just having a school that knows your name purely because they go to that school. And when you introduce yourself to a group of 1,000 Deceptors and you're like, oh, I'm Kage. And they're like, I go to the Kage School of Deception. Like, just that mindfuck of you're who? You're the mural? You're that statue? Because again, you could do all that stuff. You could say that you want a statue made of yourself. Or, you could do all of those things to mindfuck people.
That's crazy. I like it. Wally threw in a little bit about masters.
If you limit your master's set, it to the wisdom and constitution, not intelligence, as it would be taxing one person to know too much.
So I think the mentality is like,
oh,
if
like
one
on
person
the
knows too much, like their wisdom and their constitution can help shoulder that weight. You know what I mean? So like
right.
the higher it is, the more.
I read that more as if you want to limit the masters instead of like how many you can be the headmaster of. I'm thinking he's saying do it based off like the modifier, so you can only control so much. And yeah, you could do that. I think the reason why I did 3 at that point was
for the limiting of their.
Yeah, I think the 3 was just overall it was a lot of easier than having to do like the justification of your wisdom, because again, these could be anywhere you want them to be. So the idea is that 3 is just realistically how many schools can you honestly run. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, you could do like a based off of a modifier. I could see that too. If you have a higher charisma modifier or higher wisdom modifier, I could see saying that you're able to manage your time a little bit better. Let's see. So, blah, blah, blah. You can have 3 schools at a time. So, once a school has been established, the Deceptor may willingly step down as headmaster. If done so, the Deceptor is given the title of Forebearer. This title cannot be removed or challenged, as it is considered the highest rank within the school. So, this is what we were talking about. You want to open up a 4th school, you step down. You become the Forebearer. You have someone else as the headmaster. So, someone else is the dean. Every student knows they are the controller, but again, you're the statue. Everyone walks in, every first year walks in and says the oath. Imagine you did this, where not only do I have a statue of me that everyone knows a place, but there is a plaque at the bottom of this with my oath. And every New Year student, the day one they walk into the school, must recite that oath to my statue. And on their 1-year anniversary, they must. Like, you could have this whole ritual to where everyone knows your name simply because they said that oath every time they walked in. So I forgot about this, but yes, again, there is reasons, and I did mention before, again, that's the second highest. So the highest is basically, so again, it's pushing people. I now own a school, so own 2, own 3. Well, why should I own more than 3? Because you can become a Forebearer, and again, can't be challenged. So once you become a Forebearer, that school is owned. If someone tries to change the name of the school, you have every right to go in and kill them by the laws of the Deceptor. That again, it's kind of like someone tries to play headmaster. You can go right ahead, Deceptor. You will be applauded for your attempt, and then you will be murdered for your failure. It's kind of those rules, right? It's kind of like a thief, right? If you could steal from the master thief, if you could out-pirate the pirate king, you'll be applauded, but you'll be murdered if you fail. So yes, you could try to take over a school by posing as the headmaster and succeed, and you'll be applauded for your efforts. But if you fail, the rules are simple. you broke like the carnal laws, because the Deceptors have the concept of this is a class, this is a skill for the outside world. Why would you turn it inward on us? We are here to infect the world and to manipulate the world.
We're here to bring more of this.
If you turn it on us and you destroy the beauty that we have, you destroy the chaos machine. That's why you basically don't use these against each other. And that's why we have protections. That's why people will try to usurp you from headmasterhood. Mm-hmm. That's why you have forebearership. Because you are no longer a threat to them. You have given up your rights as headmaster, but you've also made it impossible for them to truly shine without making their own school. So you're also pushing them to do better. A constant manipulation, right?
I like it. I like it a lot.
So additional note, if title of forebearer has been obtained, any who are associated with the Deceptor school will refer to him as such within the confines of the school. Otherwise, he will be referred to as my master.
Wait, one more time?
So within the confines of the school, the headmaster is always referred to as headmaster, and forebearer is always referred to as forebearer. When you leave the school grounds, the headmaster is only referred to as master. The forebearer is referred to as my master. So literally anyone from that school associated, if once you're a forebearer, if they talk to you out of school, they will always say, yes, my master Kage. The headmaster, they will say, yes, master Kage. My master Kage. You are everyone's master. Everyone has the respect to say you are their master, not just a master. So you see the mindset too?
Yes.
It's ingraining that concept of entitlement. You have gone so high that anyone from that school owes everything to you. Even if you're not the headmaster and taught them, you are the ultimate master because you got this place to where it was. Which is why it's important to open your own. Because you can't be a forebearer of one that you took over. So that I should have written that in this. If you cannot be a headmaster, you cannot step down as headmaster from a school you didn't start and still gain forebearer.
Got you.
That should be written in there. You can't be elevated to take over a school and then just immediately forebearer it. Only the person who created it can step down and forebearer. Unless you were really good at deceiving people. Still doing a Discord. What's next after agreeing to the being nice? Cool. So once you've agreed to being nice, let me walk you through it real quick. So yeah, once you've gone in here, excellent. You're there, Wally. Once you've said yes in here to this, go ahead and hit the check mark on the get verified. All the rules are right here if you want to just read and do a quick follow through. But yeah, once you say yes, I'm willing to be nice, go ahead and click the verification check mark. And once you've done that, go into the follower verification and just type out your Twitch follower name and tag both of these guys. The reason why we're doing this, I know it sounds like a lot. So first one is just a community protection. So you have to agree to the rules. That's just a protection for us so we can easily manage anybody that comes in. The check mark little reaction, that's for the bot so he can get you into the system. So it's literally, you just have to go to go to the follower verification, or I'm sorry, the greetings, and you've already done that. I see your check mark. And then the reason why we have the follower verification is we want people to see and check out the Discord, come and see what we're all about. But we really only want followers to be able to interact. We just don't want people coming in doing, like hate raids or anything else like that. So the reason we have you do a follower verification is because if you want to chat and talk to us about the stream, we want to make sure that you're involved in the stream. So once you type out your name and you tag both the host and DM and the co-host, that just, if you weren't online, like if we weren't live, it would just let us know to come and check in on you so you can join the Discord faster. So I know it sounds like a lot. That's all we're just really asking for is just those three things. Again, we know it's a lot. It's designed for once we do get popular, or if we get popular, it's just those levels of protection that we're trying to make sure so people don't just flood the Discord.
You know what I mean? Just making sure everybody's gonna.
It's always on the up. We just want everyone to be on the up and up. And then Wally player DM to share all I have with the world. Okay, not quite exactly what we needed, but I totally understand. We'll work on that. I think it's just going to be a thing that we have to work on. But you're live. We see you. It's cool. So we're going to go ahead and get you in here. So you have... Oh, you already got him?
Yep.
Thank you. So we got the follower. We can take off the viewer. Perfect. And there you are. You are now in the followers. So now you should have access, Wally. Make sure you have it. Let's make sure. There you are. Boom. And you are live. You should be able to see all of the things. If you're confused on anything, you can just click on any of the channels. All of them will have these black bars, and basically all of the black bars are information on what that channel is going to be for eventually. And all of the channels have a pinned message. If you don't want to click through them all, you can just go up and click on pinned messages, and it will give you a snapshot of what that channel is for and what you can expect to find from it. So go ahead, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I do just ask that you just, kind of click through, see what everything's about before you start like posting anywhere, just because we are trying to keep things pretty common. There is a spot under stream info for things you can submit to us for the stream. But if you want, like submissions for topics, if you have homebrew, you can come into the submissions area to submit your homebrew ideas. Just again, read the rules, please, follow the rules. But if you have just a question for us that you don't want to wait for stream, we do have an area for DM questions where you can just ask us, on the fly, like, hey, what would you do? What would be your ruling? What is it in High Point? Hey, at Kage, hey, what would you do? This is just kind of an open area for open-ended discussions to be answered whenever. But if you want them answered on stream, we have, the suggestions for how to make the stream better, topics for what you want to hear us talk about, questions for us to answer specifically on stream, and then homebrew submissions.
Yes,
it's in a work in progress. We only got this started a couple weeks ago, so it's a work in progress. Bear with us. But if you do have suggestions on how to make it better, I know you're new to Discord, but please let me know. All right, we are so late on this. Let me finish this up. We are actually pretty much on the last pages. The rest of these, I only really have 2 pages left. Well, 1 page after this. So other things. Okay, so there's the My Master. So headmasters and forebearers may refer to apprentices as they please. So if you're a headmaster or a forebearer, you can call your apprentices whatever you want. There is no official title.
Oh, calling your apprentices, but each other.
Yeah, so they will call you master and my master, but you don't have to call them apprentice Kage.
Gotcha.
You could be like you. Or you could be like esteemed apprentice. You can treat them however you wish. They show you respect. Gotcha. Kind of like in the military. Yep. You might be called by your name, you might be called by your rank, or you might be called soldier. That's it. You know what I mean? You may not even you may be called shitbag. Get over here. Like the whole point is it doesn't matter. Headmasters may refer to other headmasters with title name, or just name without scrutiny, as long as their own titles have been acknowledged by the other. So if you and I were to meet, we're both Deceptors, there's usually some sort of ritual to figure out who's who and what we are.
Gotcha.
But once we've both been established, if you discover that I'm a headmaster and I establish that I am a headmaster of another school, like you could even just say, oh, where do you hail? Oh, well, I'm headmaster of such and such school. Where do you hail from? Oh, I'm an apprentice of such and such school. We've established who we are. But if once we've established we're both headmasters, at that point, there is no issue with me just calling you Kage. If you are Headmaster Kage and I am Headmaster Vortex, Kage is fine. And neither of us will feel insulted. Once we know that. Now, you can play mind games. If I know you're a headmaster and you don't know I'm a headmaster, calling you Kage is a mindfuck. And also looked down upon. Not against the rules, but it's a little...
It's a little slanty.
It's a little like, hey, bro, that's not... You obviously know, I mean, it's a Deceptors, but the whole point is it's more respectful to establish who you are, because then you immediately want to know, do I need to give you more respect, or do you need to give me more respect? But once we've established each other and know we are headmasters, you can call me headmaster, you can call me Headmaster Vortex, or just Vortex. Same thing with you. There's no scrutiny once we understand who each other are, but that's the most important part, is... Because if you walk in as a Deceptor and you know that you're in a room of Deceptors and someone says, oh, hey, Kage, and you've never met them before, that's an immediate, either we're equals or you're above me, or you've just really better have an excuse.
If I'm in a room with 2 forebearers, am I calling them both my master?
Yes, they would. Anytime you address them, you'd be like, yes, my masters, if you were addressing both.
Like
well, actually, no. If you were in the room with 2 forebearers... you would only say my master to the one that you were affiliated with. If you are a headmaster of your own school and you walk into the room with 2 forebearers of unassociated schools whatsoever, you would either title them as you could call them my master, but that's overly doing
Overly
it,
formal.
overly formal, and giving them more respect than they deserve, you would probably just call them master, or most likely just forebearer. Master is acceptable, but
Because they are a master.
they are a master and above you. You call no one master, so you would call,
Except for my master.
and it would be insulting to call another forebearer in front of your forebearer my master concept.
That's kind of
So
what I was
you,
thinking.
and again, you wouldn't want to be a forebearer hearing your apprentice call someone else my master. That's like, excuse me.
Yeah.
So it's touch and go. But if you were to meet another forebearer, it's most likely forebearer or anointed. Like you could fluff it up, but usually just forebearer or master
It's
is
like
fine.
your majesty or your,
Yes.
your great royal highness.
But good question. Yes, but if
Okay.
it's your forebearer, they are your master. If they are not associated to your school, then they are just a forebearer.
That's cool. Wally, actually, I think he said he was a master sergeant in the army.
No worries. I only post after talking with others. Not shy. Oh, you were a master sergeant in the Army Infantry. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah. I was not that. No, I was not that far up. I was in the military as well. I was in the Army. I was a 25 Sierra for 7 years. Did one tour in 2012, but I only made it to corporal. So. You definitely outrank me by a lot. So every rank has its own niche as to what they're called and how they're addressed. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, I don't know. Master Sergeant, I never gave anything other than Master Sergeant. Like, if I ever saw Master Sergeant, like, that's what it was. It was Master Sergeant.
That was like chief for me in the Coast Guard. Like, you just called it. Like, you're just
Yeah.
chief.
I mean, we had, like, for First Sergeant, we had top. You can always call First Sergeant top. But that was more informal. You wouldn't call them that in a formal setting. But if it's like in the smoke pit or, they're just, coming onto site, checking in on you, you could just be like, hey, what's up, top? But top was it. Yeah, I mean, you could call a staff sergeant. You would rarely ever call First Sergeant anything other than First Sergeant. Like, I mean, you could call him top, but I mean, formally it was always First Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, whatever. Sergeant First Class was just also Sergeant, which is weird.
Right.
Like, I mean, you never ever wanted to say Sergeant First Class. Like, you just say Sergeant. But I would usually separate Sergeant for Staff Sergeant, just because, especially out in the field, there was a difference in terms of what they did. One's just an upgraded sham artist, whereas the other one actually does some shit. Sergeant First Class, just I always found them to be more useless than like lieutenants, because they were always never around. It was always First Sergeant was around or beyond that, but yeah, Master Sergeant, Sergeant Major, like those are just them. You never messed with them. You gave them their courtesy and you moved on. 11 Charlie, 18 years, got out, or you would be, you got out because you didn't want to be a First Sergeant. All right, that's fair. Man, 18 years. Thank you.
Man.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, no, I did my 8 contract,
Same.
and I was done.
Golly.
18, I couldn't do that. I was not a lifer. I knew when I joined I wasn't a lifer though.
I thought about it. I did. I decided against it about halfway through.
Okay, let's finish this up real quick. So forebearers may refer to headmasters as they please. So again, downward as you please. However, it is considered proper to refer to them by their title. So a forebearer doesn't have to be respectful, but a forebearer would. You notice like the higher you are, that respect ebb and flows.
Froggy, you can call him chief. Or you can call
Yeah,
him
but
whatever.
I like to look at it as like respect ebb and flows. The higher you go, you kind of ebb and flow on respect. But then once you get to the very highest, like the person at the very highest always seems to be the most respectful. You know what I mean? So a forebearer would absolutely always refer to a headmaster, as in, I see you. I see what you've done.
Right.
And I respect that. Whereas an apprentice is like, why would I even bother talking to you and identifying what you are? Unless you're like a shining pupil. But a headmaster, it's like, oh, you've done, okay, I respect that. I've been there. And I want you, like, so I always look at it as the highest typically has the most respect, and then it kind of ebbs and flows all the way its way down. And then, of course, the bottom has all of the respect as well.
Right.
Headmasters forebearers may refer to headmasters as they please. However, it is considered proper to refer to them by their title. The use of names along with titles is typically reserved for close relations. Names without titles are typically viewed as insults. So this is forebearers on down. So if you were Headmaster Kage and I'm Forebearer Vortex, the most likely of scenarios, I constantly will call you Headmaster Kage as respect. Or I will call you Headmaster, period, as respect. If you and I are just having a conversation, I'm like, yes, that's interesting, Headmaster. Yes, Headmaster, uh-huh. Okay, Headmaster. Like, it's just, I recognize what you are, but I don't care who you are. Yeah. Whereas if you and I are close, if I maybe helped you get to your first school, but didn't give you your first school, or you are one of my headmasters, I would refer to you as Headmaster Kage. Because I respect you to use your name, but if you're just some other headmaster, I wouldn't even bother. Like, what do I care? You're not part of my schools, so what do I care? You're a rival is all. As far as I'm concerned, you're a potential rival, right? So you only use the title just for respect. You use title plus name if they're close to you. And if you come into my office as a forebearer and you're a headmaster, whether you're mine or not, whether you're one of my schools or not, and I come in and go, what do you want, Kage? That's like, I don't give a shit about you. You are literally don't deserve. It's basically a forebearer saying, I see you and I don't think you deserve your title. It's literally, in my mind, I've stripped you of your title because I don't think you deserve being called headmaster. So a forebearer should refer to you as headmaster. If he uses your name, he likes you and you're close. And if he only uses your name, he doesn't think you deserve your title. That's the mindset.
Interesting.
So again, all mind games. Depending on how a forebearer talks to you, it could be all mind games. And then forebearers may refer to other forebearers with title name, or just name without scrutiny as long as they have been acknowledged ahead of time. So again, once you're on the same level, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
Because we're equals. A forebearer to another forebearer is equal. Now granted, a forebearer of 10 schools and a forebearer of 2 schools, the 2 schools would probably be a lot more respectful. But the point is, they're both forebearers. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter at that point. We've both acknowledged that we are better than everybody else. And then there is the final type, a traveling Deceptor. This was a thing that we also had with other older school classes where you could be a traveling version of it.
Oh,
like a wanderer.
I kind of like this.
So again, these are all, so you had the land, so we just went through everything that's landowning, meaning I'm an established and I'm sitting in one spot, right? So everything we just talked about, all of this stuff is a land-owning Deceptor going up the ranks in their hideout, their school, blah, blah, blah. Now, non-landowning. So remember we talked about you can get 9th level, you become named, and then 30th level, you would prestige in order to be able to own a school. So if you choose to be a traveling Deceptor, name level Deceptors who choose not to establish a fort may do so at any time. So essentially, you can choose not to establish a fort now at level 9 and do so anytime in the future. Prestige, so basically, once you reach level 9, you don't have to immediately do a fort. You have up until level 30.
Right.
So anytime between level 9 and level 30, you can establish. Those that prestige without establishing basically are accepting the traveler. Actually, this one says that basically if they... Okay, so this one says traveling Deceptors. Named Deceptors who choose not to establish a fort may do so at any time. Prestige level Deceptors who choose not to establish a school may do so at any time. I think that was supposed to be changed to basically if you have prestige by the time you've made a fort. If you haven't made a fort by the time you've prestige, you essentially guarantee the traveling Deceptor. But a traveling Deceptor essentially is just one who's chosen to not gain followers and who has chosen the way of self-development. So instead of you have the named established ones, the landowning ones, they want to spread the class. These ones are dedicated to themselves. I want to be the better Deceptor, whereas others want more Deceptors, right? There's 2 fields of view, being the better one or making this more of an idea. And the Traveler Deceptor would come with its own things. I just never got to that point, so I didn't write that one out. And the last page is basically special abilities after 100 skill points. Hey, didn't someone have a question over that?
Yes.
So, as you can see, here was the original page that my DM and I went over.
Okay.
So this was draft 1. As you can see, had a lot of
extra
rewrites,
marks and this and that.
So let me see here. Yes. So I'm going to try to go through these a little bit. So the idea is once you've passed 100 skill points, so abilities after 100 skill points. So I think what this was supposed to do I'm actually trying to remember what I was doing here. Hold on.
Sometimes it takes a second to get those juices flowing again. Especially in the same direction they used to be. I'm out of water.
I actually don't remember what this was. So I thought this was like, again, how the Deceptor would become more powerful over time, where the more you would do over 100 skill points in something, it would affect different things. But the way this is working, I don't know. Maybe this isn't part of the Deceptor class, because this is talking about like godhood and immortality stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how this applies to this abilities. So what I'm thinking this is saying that once you've reached these points, which is like 100, 150, 200, the idea would affect these other things, but they're not matching up. So I think this was a placeholder for the idea that once you started putting more than 100 points into something, it would start affecting more than just normal creatures. So like once you have over 100, it would affect any 10 hit die creature and below. So any creature, even if they're immune or resistant, if they're a 10 hit die creature or below, your ability would work on them as a Deceptor.
What if those creatures aren't like the right creature type?
That's what I mean. It was supposed to be all like 10. It was supposed to be like anything with 10 hit die or less would be susceptible to you because you've got powerful. And then the next one would be like all undead are susceptible to you. So you basically like have an undead. And then at 200 skill points, that skill would basically be guaranteed to work on all mortals, any mortal creature. Once you had 250, you would be able to do like kindred thropians, which basically be werewolves and vampires. At 300, it says magical items, so maybe like sentient magical items. You would be able to work on magical items. 400 points, you could work on dragons. 500, imperial or gifted, which I don't remember. I think that was his realm. And then we have a bunch of other stuff, which is just different blocks of immortalhood. So the more points you put in, the higher tier creatures. But it doesn't really work. I don't remember all of the reasons for that. And so let's talk about the, real quick, we are so late, but let's talk a little bit about the ideas I had behind, because we talked about 26 special abilities, right? Mm-hmm. So what are those 26 special abilities? Well, I didn't finish the list, as you can see here. It's pretty much empty. But the list was originally supposed to be the 26 letters of the alphabet, and the idea was each one would relate to basically a feat or a skill that you would have different types of proficiency in. So instead of going off the book where you would have to do like a dex check or a charisma check for something, this skill has its own check. So the idea would be like the first one. So you get 26. So A, so you get A through Z. If you put percentage into A, it would be like attract. So the idea is the skill is like attract or arousal. So it's kind of like a charm. You would basically use this skill set to attract people. Now, the difference is it's not make yourself more attractive. It's the idea of this is your skill as a Deceptor. So let's say you need an item or you need something. You could either use this to charm someone and make them attracted to you to gain something, or you could put it in their head they want something. You use this power on someone, you put the seed in their head that they want it, they go get it for you. Or basically it's a suggestion.
What makes them want to get it for you?
Well, it's not for you. The idea is you make them attracted to it. So the skill is you're planting seeds in someone to make them attracted to something.
Got it.
So the idea is, I think there's actually an attract spell. It's similar to the attract spell, but it's like the idea that you can manipulate them.
A prince attracted to a certain person.
Attracted to a person. You could, attracted to an idea. It's almost like a suggestive thing, but the idea is that they need to be attracted to, like you need to go under the guise of attraction, right? Yeah. So up to you, the player, and the DM to discuss what that means. But the skill of attraction means that you can instill attraction in someone. You can make them attracted to an idea, a place, an item. How you use that is up to you. But the 10% chance of getting that idea across, right? So you put those points in and you have a percentage chance to attract someone or attract them to something. And again, these were all subject to change. This is just the concept idea. Then for B, I was bluff. Straight up bluff. So at that one, instead of doing a charisma check, You could directly put points into just straight bluffing.
Now, is that any sort of deception?
It would be similar to deception, but again, between player and DM, what do you define a bluff? Bluff is not necessarily a lie. It's a insinuation. I'm trying to get you to believe something I'm not telling you. Like a bluff in poker. I'm not telling you what hand I have. I'm trying to make you believe my hand's better.
Trying to make you believe
So bluff isn't a deception. Bluff is not saying I'm going to tell you A and I want you to believe B because I don't want you to believe A. So I'm going to tell you something and I don't want you to believe A, I want you to believe B. That's deception. I'm saying something to get you to... I am lying and telling you something that you should believe. Whereas a bluff is, again, Deceptor. I want to put it in your head. So you could use bluff during an interrogation. Someone's interrogating you. You could bluff them to believe that you're the wrong person or that you don't know this information. Or, again, you don't know something about somebody. So you use bluff to say something that insinuates you have more information than they think you do.
And you might reveal...
So bluff, again, these are all DM specific, but the reason why I went off the alphabet and why these are specific is it's meant to attract to the word. So attract, what does that mean? Doesn't mean you can get someone to steal something and take it, but you could get someone attracted to something enough to get close to it, or to start to do, like, you can get someone attracted to a famous person enough to where they stalk them.
Just imagine, like, there was a merchant that didn't have an item you wanted, but one of his competitors did. You don't have a good relationship with him, but you do with him.
Boom.
Will you go get that item for me?
And attract him to selling that item. Don't attract him to own the item because then he wants it. Attract him to own it to sell it. Like, again,
you can make good money off of that
attract him to the sale, not the purchase, right? So again, how you and your DM wanted to do this. C for confuse. That was my first item. Again, all of these are subject to change. This was a very minimalist, but like confuse may not have been the right word. But confuse would be a cool power. Or imagine if you turn this one into contradict. So even though you may not be knowledgeable of the subject, you can, within listening of any conversation for 1 minute, you could play devil's advocate. Meaning you could ensue doubt by... So again, the concept is assign a word that makes sense to a Deceptor class, and I was going to build all of these 26 out to be different things that you can do. Very specific ways you can deceive people. Distract. Learn how to have a distractible. So yeah, anyone could just say I throw a rock to distract, but being a Deceptor, being able to read the room and go, I'm going to use my distraction to distract those 3 people specifically. Well, you have a 10%. You don't have to tell me. You could role play that out. Any other character would have to role play that out, but a Deceptor, I have a 30% chance to distract. I want to distract those 3 people specifically. I passed my roll. Now you and the DM go, okay, you saw that these people are doing this, so you go by and you pay the waitress. Like, the whole point, though, is how is the Deceptor doing it, but it has to go along with the word, right? Enrage or encourage. Those were the ones I was playing off of, right? You could enrage someone. Basically, kind of like vicious mockery. You don't do them any harm, but imagine, like, there's a touchy situation that people are trying to calm down, and you can just sit there and be like, no, fuck you, get mad. You know what I mean? Just get under someone's skin. Or encourage. The idea of boosting someone. Maybe you could get them... Maybe they're being timid and you can be like, no, you can do it. And they're like, yeah, I can. So these are all little ideas. Just ways that you can make a Deceptor class. Again, not a fighter. Your whole job in this class is to manipulate the world, right? Talk to someone who's on the verge of someone and use one of your abilities to push them over the edge. Metaphorically. Another one, I would be like intimidate, an easy one. But sure. I like the idea of, instead of using it against your strength or your charisma, it's something you can pump. You can learn someone's psyche enough to where you don't have to be intimidating, but you can learn the art of intimidation.
You can learn what scares them, the things that they're worried about, the things that would put them on edge, whether they're big, strong, and muscly or not.
Right.
Like let them know I know your weakness, or let them know something.
Oh yeah.
It just like throws them off.
S was, I originally had it for suggestion, but that's a little bit powerful, so then I turned it to seduce because that's another valuable one. And again, that's really all I had like off the top because this was like my very beginning list. But the idea was that you would be able to do this, fill all of this out, how like someone can be overzealous. So Z would be zealousness or zealous. You could fill someone with like that spur of over, maybe you call it zealous, but maybe it's you literally instill overconfidence. You get people to not think through something and be overconfident in it.
Think people always say overzealous, but if there is an overzealous, there's got to be an underzealous.
Oh yeah.
So maybe you just have the ability to reverse someone's zeal for a certain topic.
Exactly. And these are all the different ways that I was thinking about this class. And like I said, it's a cool concept of a class. I see that there's a lot of things I would change, especially because it's like between first and second edition and then fifth edition, I would just build this class a lot differently now. But I still want to make this class. I still want to bring this to High Point. Even though it technically has nothing to do with Zenith, I still would like to continue to develop this into something, because I love the idea of even a subclass. Because you also got to remember, this was made back in the day where it was basically just classes.
Yeah.
Now this would be considered a subclass.
Would.
So that's probably what I would end up turning it into, is probably like a rogue subclass.
Would this still exist as...
Oh, I didn't see that well left. Oh. Sorry, Wally.
Would this still exist as Spaz's creation?
So that's the hard part, right? Is because there's part of me that's like, well, technically it has nothing to do with Zenith and he wouldn't create it, but it's also my creation, right? So in the end, because this never came to fruition, it's still mine. It's still my IP. It's still my creation. It just has to be revamped completely for High Point. Like as it sits right now, it sits at like a 4 out of 10 because I have to do a lot of work to it. But it will probably end up becoming a subclass. It will probably end up going... I don't know who's going to run this, though. Like, I don't know where this is going to come from, because it's a cool concept of a class, but of course I have to implement it, so it's going to be more of where did it come from, right? Like, what NPCs are going to have it to make it, like, flesh-outable.
Are you going to try and keep this in second, or are you going to try and bring it all the way to fifth?
Well, because of the way that my realm works now, it's a foundation in second, but has aspects of all, whatever fits. So this will basically be a High Point creation, because High Point isn't primarily second. Well, it's primarily second, but it'll be a High Point creation, but I will probably try to design it to where next time I present it, it will be applicable more to a 5-point mindset, to where it will be easy for anyone to pick this up. Because obviously there's a lot of stuff in here that's very old, but once I upgrade it to High Point's current standard, it won't feel so second edition. Yeah. But I do like this idea of having a set skill sets, like a set list of skills. And again, the idea, as you can see, these are all skill sets in the terms of the psyche and in terms of what you can do to people. So if we fill this list out of 26 abilities and they're all based on some sort of manipulation or some sort of way you can get to people, you could have a lot of fun with, again, deciding which ones you want to be proficient in, right? If you want to be proficient in, like maybe M is meddling. So meddling as in, you can overhear a situation and you roll a percentile and your DM will give you if you succeed, your DM gives you a hint on how you could meddle in it. So maybe meddling is literally not the player doing an action, but the player saying, hey, I want to meddle in this. I roll, 50% chance. Ooh, I got a 10. So how can I meddle in this? And DM's like, well, you picked up a couple part of this conversation and you know that this item seemed to be really important. So if anything happened to this item, this whole deal would go up in flames. So the idea is that it could be a specialty for how to analyze a situation if you as the player aren't good at that. But you want, because if you're naturally good at that, see, here's the other part about this. If you're naturally good at that as a player, you wouldn't need to pump anything into that stat because you naturally would do that, right? Mm-hmm. Which could be the player, or the character. The character could naturally be that good. The idea of putting the skill points is things that you've learned. So if you're not naturally good at that, the idea is to put your character, put points into it so the character is better than the player. And again, you could do that with every single one of these skill points, and depending on which combinations you do. So maybe you want to be an earworm guy. So you take all of the skill points that are all about planting seeds. So there would be a bunch of these skills, some more direct than the others, as you've already heard some of the examples. So you pick all the ones that are I just like to whisper in people's ear and push them. So you get the encourage, you get the attract, you get all of the ones that are literally just pushing people towards an idea. Or you get the ones that are more direct, the ones that are like, maybe L is like lie, where it's like, it's better than deceive. Where it's like, I have a 10% chance to lie and get away with it.
Oh.
So you're lying, like, instead of just deception, it's straight out L. I have a 50% chance to succeed in a lie. They will just believe what I say.
Like, almost as if they were charmed to do so.
Or however many points you have in lie, like let's say L is lie, let's say that percentage chance is the percentage chance they'll believe it. So if you put 20% in lie, anytime you tell a lie and you use this skill, you have a 20% chance of succeeding. So the better you get at lying, so again, if the very first time you put any points into it, you put like 5 points, you're like 5% chance that they'll believe your lie. Well, I'd rather roll my deception. That's better. Okay, that's fine. Get better at lying. Lying and deceiving aren't necessarily always the same things. They are, but when you look at it mechanically, if you get...
Misdirection is a very big part of deception.
And that's the thing is, if you could get better at deception by just being better at wisdom, being better at charisma, but to be better at lying specifically, that will be a very different situation than
this gives me
trying
a
to
lot of
deceive
vibes
NPCs.
Of, if you've looked into, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically the 5th edition's version of psionics. They have these like categories that you can invest into, and then these categories will give you like different abilities, and they kind of like are a little bit synergistic with each other, but it's actually really, really interesting, like the combinations you can put together, the different ways you can do stuff with, and I very much see a lot of potential here for very similar stuff with this. That's very cool.
Yeah, so I really like this build. I definitely feel mixed feelings about it, but overall, I think it's a solid idea. I'm impressed with younger me, earlier D&D me,
right,
with not only the dedication I put into this, but with a thought process. Like, even before I was a DM, reading this tells me that I was definitely ready for, like, not ready for DMhood at that point, but I was on my way. Like, this shows me I was always going to become a DM. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying that you need something special, but it just shows that that's where I wanted to be.
But, like, and again, very much to, like, I think this points to you discovering the type of DM you want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This was a huge point, a driving point in how I became a DM.
Yeah.
Doing things like this, even though I look back and go, man, this is really harsh on a lot of people. Like, my DM was very much the old school, don't use a calculator, pen and paper, show your work kind of DM. But it prepped me so well to be a better DM and learn which of those I think were beneficial to players and which ones were fine where they were. Like, some things will be left in his realm, and I think some things taught me how to be a better DM for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I don't know if I would ever put my players through this. I don't think I would ever ask you guys to do this. But having done it, I think was a good preparation for me as a DM and as a player. Not necessarily for everyone. I think it was a good way for me to get here.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Well, we have passed the 3.5 hour mark, which is not normal for not D&D Monday. So I think we're gonna call it there. We lost Wally. Unfortunately, he had to get up at 06:30.
I do too.
But hey, he will be continuing working on that. I am really interested to hear more about his world setting, so hopefully he will rejoin us for that.
Yep.
I really want to talk to him about more interest on larger gaming groups. That could be a whole different topic, larger gaming groups. I really want to talk to him more about larger gaming groups because getting skills in how to deal with more than 4 players at a time is not easy. And you have to have a lot of patience. And I would love to talk to another DM about that because I know it's not easy. And I would love to get more advice that other DMs have had. And then he says, be safe, stay cool, guys. Well, that is so great. I am so glad that we have a new follower. That is fantastic to see him. I think we're going to stop it there. So, Cosmic, thank you so much for joining us. Was it Bobicus or Brewball? I think it was Brewball that was in here earlier.
I think it was Brubel.
Brubel,
Yeah.
thank you so much for hopping in again and chatting with us. Wally, thank you for the follow. If you guys liked what you saw here and missed anything, or you want to catch any of our other podcasts, you can catch everything we've done on YouTube at MisfitGamersStudios. I'm getting better at this whole thing. I can describe it. But you can find us at MisfitGamersStudios on YouTube. All of our posts are there. So if you missed anything or want to look at anything that we've done before, D&D Discussions is Monday and Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then I do pop-up games, mostly RPG games, on the weekends. Kage is usually here on Mondays, so join us. And then I think starting Thursday, I'm going to start doing deep dives into the origins of High Point. I think I've talked long enough about being, the DM of my own realm. I think it's time I started giving more background to kind of. I think we've legitimized ourselves in our ideas and in our approach, but I really haven't established High Point yet. I talk about it a lot. I talk about high points.
Pieces in there.
Yeah,
Nuggets,
but I really would like to start doing a deeper dive into like the origins, how it works, some of the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm gonna start planning that for these Thursdays. I'll probably do a couple different episodes on it. So join us for that. D&D Discussions Monday and Thursday, and don't forget you can join our Discord. I will pop that one more time in chat. But join our Discord. Let us know what's going on. You can submit topics. You can submit ideas. You can submit your own homebrew. You can submit suggestions for us on how to get better, or you can just come in and chat with us off stream. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a good start to your weekend, or good start to your week. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I will see you all on Thursday. Have a great night.